Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. That's right, I think that Black Tower has actually almost done the research on the star core. I just built a model using the data you gave me. There are no clear errors or omissions in theory, and the calculation process is all normal. Moreover, Black Tower is not actively studying you in the star core now, but is focusing on simulating the universe. So, Xing, you who know Haida's character should understand, right? Close black lens bracket. Looking at the explanation given by Moyu, Xing was stunned for a long time. In the end, he just twitched the corner of his mouth and chose to give up thinking. As for whether to ask the Black Tower about the authenticity of this matter, Star doesn't intend to do this either. Although she didn't get along with Haida for long, she had figured out Haida's character. What Haida wants to say will naturally be said. Things that you don't want to talk about are not easy for anyone to do. Since Haida didn't take the initiative to mention it, even if she asked, she would probably only get a blank look. Will be considered too idle, and then be arrested to test the simulated universe. There will be no other consequences. What Himeko said is absolutely correct. After Black Tower is no longer interested in something, he will decisively choose to discard it and ignore it no longer. Obviously, Black Tower, who played the Star Core almost as well, is no longer interested in the Star Core. Even if this result is published, it will shock the entire universe. The Black Tower will just throw it aside like garbage and ignore it completely. Definitely, maybe there is a deeper reason behind this. After all, the Star Core thing involves the Star God. Even if Black Tower himself is an intelligence envoy, he probably doesn't want to touch certain taboos at will, right? But, although we can't get a conclusion from the Black Tower. But, there are still big guys in the group. Traveler Ying. To be honest, the newcomer is really scary. He is already confirmed to be the boss. According to Xing's previous description, Haida is one of the top geniuses in her universe. I didn't expect Moyu to be able to obtaining the opponent's research data in such a short period of time and directly drawing conclusions. It's scary, right? Isn't this better than a guy who claims to be a great genius? At Iron Man Tony. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Iron Man Tony. Close black lens bracket Ying. This wave is a mockery with a jumping face. But Tony couldn't get angry at all. Slow is slow, that's a fact. He was still slowly inputting data here. As a result, Moyu had already established a data model and given a conclusion. There is no harm in contrast. However, Kamigawa Warriors. Isn't this guy supposed to be a fighting type of being? Why is it so scary in terms of research? Could it be that he had some misunderstanding about the word warrior? Or, the word Kamigawa in the prefix actually refers to omnipotence? Are the so-called Kamigawa warriors actually omnipotent warriors? Iron Man Tony. Don't worry, please set a time to come to my villa as a guest. We haven't finished talking about the last time. If you don't have time, I can come to your place to chat. Close black lens bracket. Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. Whatever, I have no problem anyway. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. Okay, let's make an agreement. The day after tomorrow, I'll come find you the day after tomorrow. Close black lens bracket. Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. Okay. Close black lens bracket, Slime Rimuru. Ah, how can it be repaired? I also want to play. This group really disappoints me. When will there be a function that can travel through the world? I can't even meet my friends, I'm so weak. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. There is no way, maybe it will happen soon, maybe it will never happen. After all, there is no instruction manual for this thing. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. Damn it. Close black lens bracket, Pioneer Star. At Xianhei Warrior Moyu. Boss, is it too late for me to hold my thigh now? Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. No, Xing. You want to be a pendant so quickly? If you can't control this, you'd better let me give it a try for you. Close black lens bracket. Pioneer Star. White Eyes.jpg. Close black lens bracket, Slime Rimuru. Your abacus is so loud, Ying, I feel like your integrity is all over the floor. Ahem, if possible, the pendant +1, close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Is this the so-called 50 steps and 100 steps? Rimuru, can you do it? Evil Eye.jpg, close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. Just don't need pendants or anything like that. In addition, The issue about the star core may have to wait for a few more hours. I haven't studied it thoroughly yet. Close black lens bracket. Pioneer star. It's only a few hours, no problem at all. Just sit back and wait. Close black lens bracket. Kamigawa warrior Moyu. Don't be too happy too early. There are differences between worlds. I'm not sure that my research results will be useful to you, let alone the materials and elements I have here and yours. There will be some side effects, so let's wait until the results come out. If the solution I give is not universal between the two worlds, then I am happy in vain. Close black lens bracket. Looking at Moyu's explanation, Xing felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on his head. It feels so cold. This possibility is not impossible. Traveler Ying. Indeed. It's like the slimes and Rimuru in my world are completely different species, although they can both be eaten. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. How does it taste? Please do send me a copy if you can. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Definitely. Paimon recently invented a frosted slime, although I haven't tried it yet. It looks pretty good. I'll send you a copy when the time comes. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. Otherworld's food is worth trying. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. Hey, are you unable to get through this joke? Slime is so cute. Why should you eat it? It's so scary. Traveler Ying. Speaking of which, isn't Rimuru able to regenerate infinitely? I have a cost-effective way to make a fortune. Rimuru, do you want to? Slime Rimuru. Oyster, oyster, absolutely oyster, don't even think about it. Horror.jpg. Close black lens bracket. What kind of devil is this guy? He actually wants to take advantage of his ability to regenerate infinitely. Just so evil. Trailblazer star. Ahem, please calm down for a while. We still have business to do. What if? I mean just what if? What if Moyu's plan really doesn't work in my universe? Is there no solution? Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. The method is not impossible. As long as you compare the different materials and elements in the two worlds, and then bring in the compared data to recorrect the data model, it can be solved in theory. Well, it is only theoretically possible. And this is a big project, and there are still situations that are completely incomparable. In short, we can only wait for now. Close black lens bracket. Pioneer star. Sure enough, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Hope everything goes well. 3 hours is not a long time. It can even be said to be very short, especially when chatting with a few friends. Parsing is complete, the data model is filled in. The gene engine sent a prompt, which made Moyu draw his attention away from the group. His eyes flickered, and he quickly browsed through all the information. He was stunned for a moment, and then his face became a little weird, but he still issued a new command immediately. Unraveling coping strategies. The corresponding strategy is being formulated. Solving. The solution is completed and the corresponding strategy is being generated. The response strategies have been generated, with a total of 12 types, half of which require the support of giant fixed star energy and cannot be achieved at the moment. Not bad. After browsing through all the data, the glimmer in Moyu's eyes dissipated. Compress all response strategies into a data disk and export them. Compression completed, export completed, hard disk generation completed. Done. He can't get giant fixed star energy for the time being, but for star. No, specifically the train set. For the train set, obtaining such a huge amount of energy as support should not be a problem. After all, Himeko's connections are terrifying, and Walter's ability is also very powerful. So, let's send all the coping strategies. After checking the 5 physical data packages in Dian's hand, Moyu uploaded them all to the group. Kamigawa warrior Moyu. Xing. I've got it done here. I've packed the data into a disk and uploaded it to the group. You can download one and see if it comes in handy. The remaining few are for backup. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Find me. Close black lens bracket. Data package download. 4/5, Trailblazer star. 4 downloads. What's going on with you 3 guys? Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Although I may not understand it, I also want to join in the fun. What if I understand it? Right. Close black lens bracket. Trailblazer star. It's not that I can't understand this, but Moyu uploaded it to a hard drive. Do you have the tools to interpret it? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Traveler Ying. Close black lens bracket. Looking at the plate in her hand, Yingmei fell into silence. Yes, even if she got this thing, she couldn't seem to use it. Then why did she download it? Numb. Ying silently re-uploaded the disk in her hand to the group. Slime Rimuru. The big guys on the technology side are so scary. I also want to see if the great sage can understand it, maybe it will be useful. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. Well, for the record, it's not that I'm incompetent, it's just that it's too troublesome to enter data, so I'll learn from it a little bit. Close black lens bracket. If you just upload the data package instead of the physical hard drive, the data downloaded by the group members is directly transferred to the original group members. Tony is different from others in the group. He does not have any super abilities. Unlike Rimuru, who has a great sage, Ying, who has elements, and stars, who have destiny, Moyu has its own genetic engine. All four of them have a way of building bridges outward and transferring data from their minds. But Tony couldn't do it. He wanted Jarvis to analyze it, but he could only enter it character by character from scratch. The terrifying amount of work. Tony gave up decisively after 5 minutes. After all, in the short 5 minutes he recorded it. Moyu has not only completed the data entry, but also has the data model ready. He won't do this useless work anymore, but he had to make it clear in the group that it was just that the process was too troublesome, not that he was incapable of it. This is really important. Pioneer Star. You guys really just watch the fun and don't take it too seriously. Close black lens bracket. She has a star core in her body, so there is nothing she can do. But these guys are really just having fun. Pioneer Star. Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk to you. I'll hide now. I'll be busy next. Close black lens bracket. She and March 7th have already won over Shivero and Bronya, and tomorrow night is the best time to counterattack the upper city. In addition, she also needs to upload the data in the hard drive to the train group. After all, even if there is a conclusion, she can't do it personally. There is no memory of the past. My mind is even more empty. She herself is not a genius researcher. We can only hope that Uncle Yang, GZ and Dan Heng can understand this and come up with solutions. If GZ and Uncle Yang can't handle it, then they have no choice but to ask the all-powerful Black Tower. She is a Muggle novice herself. How do you expect her to play with such complicated things? What are you thinking about? Hidden. Slime Rimuru. Wow. This data package is so big that it actually took the Great Sage 10 years to analyze it independently. It's amazing. Don't worry. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. 10 years? Your Great Sage actually takes 10 years? Is the content in this data disk so terrifying? Close black lens bracket. She knew how magical Rimuru's Great Sage was. I didn't expect it. It takes 10 years just to parse this data packet? Is there something wrong somewhere? Slime Rimuru. Not really. If you just do the calculation and come up with the conclusion, it is already enough. But the Great Sage said that if you complete the independent analysis of the data packet from scratch, it seems that you can get something new. Skill, so I let her try it. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. I envy you so much. I really want a Great Sage. Give me a dozen. Cat crying.jpg. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. They are all masters. Close black lens bracket. Look at the data model that has just been built next to it and is still being verified. Tony frowned slightly. I used to think Jarvis was pretty easy to use, but now. Why does it feel so bad? As expected, there is no harm if there is no comparison. It seems that the plan to upgrade Jarvis must be arranged as soon as possible. You don't want to keep up with the two perverts in the group, but at least don't fall too far behind, okay? Although I can understand it, I was really shocked. Is it technology this time? Tony's eyes flickered. That guy Moyu is really shocking me more and more. Magic, super abilities, quasi-technological means. Could it be that this guy is really an all-rounder? Sir, checking the data model will take up a lot of computing space and seriously affect the deduction of element combination replacement. This is related to your life safety. I think this project should be suspended and all efforts will be made to check the element combination that replaces palladium. Hearing this, Tony looked down at the reactor embedded in his chest. This thing saved his life first, but at the same time, it will also take away his life in the near future. It would be okay if it were external, but because of the absorbent shrapnel that keeps heading towards the heart, This thing can only be embedded in the flesh. In this case, if the reactor is used seriously, palladium poisoning cannot be avoided at all. Unless he can find a combination of elements that can replace the elements he is afraid of, or he can undergo surgery to remove the shrapnel that threatens his life. The former is in progress, while the latter, as for whether to remove the shrapnel, Tony is somewhat hesitant. After all, this kind of surgery is not 100% successful. Slime Rimuru. Speaking of which, Ying, you are almost arriving at Liyue Port, right? Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Well, I control the time very accurately. If nothing happens, I will arrive at Liyue Port tomorrow morning, and the immortal invitation ceremony will be held at noon, not too early, not too late. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. Suga, remember to start the live broadcast when the time comes. The immortal ceremony and the like should be very lively. Although I can't go there in person, it's fun to watch the live broadcast. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. It's okay. It just so happens that none of you have ever started a live broadcast, so let me be the first one to eat crabs. The scenery here should not disappoint you. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. That is indeed good, but I have always wanted to ask, are the 7 gods you mentioned the kind of gods I understand? Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Then you have to first tell me what kind of gods you know. I need to know this before I can make a judgment. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. Well, such as Odin and Zeus in my legend. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. This is not easy to explain. The gods in each world are actually different. Some are just stronger humans, while others are weird and powerful. Generally speaking, it's impossible to generalize about races. Well, the only thing they have in common is that gods generally have extremely powerful powers, right? Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Indeed, the gods here in Teyvat are more originally called the 7 rulers of the world. How should I put it? Most of the 7 gods are of inhuman, Mephisto origin, and their abilities are also quite powerful, such as Mondstadt's wind god Barbados. Although this guy is very unreliable, he is an actor, a drunkard, a weirdo, and he even single-handedly directed a scene where someone had his heart ripped out at his doorstep. But I have to say that as one of the 7 ancient gods, he is really strong. He can easily change the terrain and celestial phenomena of a continent. The original Mondstadt was a land of ice and snow that was not suitable for human survival at all. There were many mountains and the cold wind was raging. As a result, after the Mephisto War, the wind and snow that enveloped Mondstadt were blown away by him, and he cut off the mountains one by one. The tip was thrown into the sea, and a Jedi was transformed into a beautiful place with spring all year round. Close black lens bracket. Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. You can try to imagine turning the Antarctic or the North Pole into a tropical rainforest. Iron Man Tony. Although I was mentally prepared, I still couldn't help but want to say something outrageous. Close black lens bracket. Turn the Antarctic or the North Pole into a tropical rainforest, and you can easily do this with your individual power. Is this the so-called power of gods? That was indeed a bit scary. This level of power can easily set off a horrific natural disaster that would destroy modern human civilization. Traveler Ying. This is not the most outrageous thing. The 7 gods may only exist on the surface. Sora and I met a guy who claimed to be the keeper of heavenly law, although I don't know who that guy is. He's not one of the 7 gods, but that bastard is really strong. When Sora and I teamed up to face this self-proclaimed keeper of heavenly principles, we were rolled and flattened as casually as plasticine, without the ability to resist. It was that bastard who blocked the way for my brother and I to leave Teyvat, and sealed me for hundreds of years. It was extremely abominable. Close black lens bracket. Every time I think back to the scene where I was manipulated arbitrarily by the maintainer of heavenly principles. It was extremely uncomfortable. If that guy hadn't made a sudden move, how would she have suffered all these crimes? It's a pity that she still doesn't know how to defeat that bastard. One of the goals of the current journey to the 7 countries is to find Kong. Well, this is no longer urgent. The second is to break the seal imposed on her by the maintainer of heavenly principles and take back the power that once belonged to her. The third is to find a way to deal with the keeper of heavenly principles, or to bypass her and leave Teyvat. The third one is the most important and the top priority. If you can't find a way to defeat the maintainer of heavenly law, or if you can't find a way to bypass her and leave Teyvat, Then even if she found Sora and regained her power, it would still be of no avail. The first time I tried to leave, I was blocked. What about the second time? Who knows if that guy will pop up again? She's not that naive. You know, once you lose the bet, you may end up being sealed for 500 years. Even. This time she couldn't gamble. Slime Rimuru. Touch your head.jpg, close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. Touch your head.jpg, close black lens bracket, Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. Touch your head.jpg, close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. You guys. Let's talk about it first. I'm not here to gain sympathy. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. It's definitely lonely to be sealed for hundreds of years or something, right? Just like Velodra. Iron Man Tony. Wait, I almost didn't react. Ying, how old are you now? Close black lens bracket. Warrior Kamigawa Moyu. Ying Hekong can travel across the planet, her life level is no longer ordinary, and she has been to many places before coming to Teyvat, plus she has been sealed for 500 years. Her true identity probably more than 1,000 years old. Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. 1,000 plus, isn't that a super old woman? Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Bastard, you are only 1,000 plus, you are a super old woman. I will always be a beautiful girl in her 18th year, okay. And how can the time of being sealed be counted? Close black lens bracket. Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. Well, yes, she is an 18-year-old girl in her prime, just a few thousand months old. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. Poof, Traveler Ying. Angry.jpg, close black lens bracket. If possible, Ying really wanted to press this guy's head on the floor and rub it again and again. But considering that I might not be able to defeat him, and I can't defeat him either. You might even have to wait for a spoiler from this guy. Well, beautiful girls don't suffer the immediate consequences. Bear with it for now. Slime Rimuru. Hey, Mr. Moyu is really not a gentleman at all. Kamigawa Warrior Moyu. Really? Why'd I remember that someone was laughing just now, right? Tony, do you still remember who was laughing secretly? Close black lens bracket. Iron Man Tony. I definitely remember it. If I am right, it seems to be some kind of light blue, round, and edible creature. Close black lens bracket. Traveler Ying. Slime. I have always heard from Paimon that the frosted slime tastes pretty good. I will treat everyone to try it tonight, and you, Rimulu, can have a taste too. Close black lens bracket. Slime Rimuru. What kind of devils are these guys? Why can he be so evil? It just gives you chills all over. There are only 5 people in the group. After all, it became a little more deserted. Everyone is troubled by something like this. At night, most of the time, the group basically becomes deserted. But maybe this situation will get better after new members come in, right? Moyu, who had nothing to do and couldn't sleep, chose to continue developing a new Dark Plane combat engine. Although the super gene of fighting Buddha is enough for now, Moyu is not satisfied with the status quo. Super genes are not omnipotent. There is still a lot of room for improvement. A horizontal comparison shows that there is much room for improvement. The use of space, the use of time, the understanding and definition of concepts, etc. The super gene of fighting Victory Buddha was originally very functional, especially the sequence of Kamigawa Beast Body. The strength of the physical body directly explodes. In this regard, Moyu has no ability to upgrade for the time being. That requires too much knowledge and the learning time is extremely long. But the improvement and addition of the combat engine are different. It is much simpler than upgrading the super gene sequence. The former is the upgrade of the underlying genetic sequence, and the latter is the development and application of combat engines. The difficulty level is not the same. Give me a chestnut. If the main system of a computer needs to be optimized or even upgraded, replacement and modification of the underlying code are inevitable. That stuff requires a lot of expertise. Moreover, one possibility is that the entire system will be scrapped directly. Moyu didn't dare to mess around until he was absolutely sure. He wants to become stronger, not to destroy himself. It would be too arrogant to do immature experiments on yourself. But if you just install a hard drive that is compatible with the system on the computer host, change the graphics card, and write a piece of software, it will undoubtedly be much simpler. This is what Mo Worry is doing. Add a new combat engine to your Dark Plane genes. The underlying logic is the use of space. Much of his inspiration came from books lent to him by the Ancient One magician for study. What he is going to do now is roughly equivalent to the evolution of Rimuru great sage into the King of Wisdom. Complete the final integration of the scattered abilities controlled by yourself, such as portals, space cutting, space compression, space confinement, micro-wormhole transportation, etc. Create a combat engine covering all types of space and time capabilities. Well, maybe he's only halfway there right now. It can be said that he is very proficient in space, but in terms of time, he is still just a beginner. He wasn't sure about this. If you want to study it more carefully, maybe I can only borrow the time gem from Ancient One magician? This possibility seems a bit low. Thinking of this, Moyu could only scratch his head for a moment. That thing can't be borrowed just by borrowing it. Let's take it one step at a time. We should complete the integration of space capabilities first. It's time, let's talk about it then. There is no need to rush now. The road must be walked slowly, and it also requires certain opportunities. Well, maybe give him a heart of the universe when the progress bar is full in the next round. Although the possibility is very low, suppress unnecessary fantasies. Closing the book of time in his hand, Moyu slowly closed his eyes. Entering the Dark Plane, the genetic engine and combat engine are activated. All data are imported uniformly. The integrated planning of space ability is officially announced. Early next morning, a subtle beep sounded, waking up Moyu, who was immersed in the integration of the battle engine. Group member Traveler Ying has started the group live broadcast, close black lens bracket. Have we already arrived at Liyue Port? Don't worry about getting lost in it, and choose to join the live broadcast room without hesitation. Although I have played games and experienced the ceremony of inviting immortals, games are games and reality is reality. Being able to re-watch the process through Ying Ying's live broadcast perspective, Moyu said he couldn't miss it. In the blink of an eye, after a burst of bright light, the scene in front of him changed drastically. At the moment, he was at the North Pier of Liyue Port. What came from the surroundings were extremely noisy shouts of all kinds. There is an endless stream of people on the street. Moyu froze on the spot. Not only him, but everyone who entered the live broadcast room at the same time was stunned. Everyone looked around and saw a hint of surprise in each other's eyes. Oh my god, is this really a group live broadcast? Rimuru moved his hands and feet, looked at the surrounding environment, and said in disbelief. Why do I feel like I'm traveling through time under the guise of a live broadcast? It shouldn't be time travel. Tony next to him shook his head slightly. You will know just by looking around. We, a group of big living people, suddenly appeared here. We are all wearing strange clothes. No matter what, we will attract attention, but everyone seems to ignore us. Hey, can you see? Shing put his hands on his hips, walked up to a passerby and waved, but he was still completely ignored. It's sure, they can't see us at all, and they can't hear us. We can actually communicate with each other. And, it's very strange. The four of us speak 3 languages, but we can communicate with each other without any obstacles. It's the chat group that converts our respective languages into understandable ones. Tisk. Tony touched his chin. This is a bit considerate. Chinese is super difficult to learn, and the translator I prepared is useless. Also, what is our current state? Similar to Ghost. Moyu, what do you think? Moyu raised his hand and swiped lightly, and the space in front of him was slightly rippled, but it had no impact on the world in front of him. Moyu turned around and raised his hand to grab Tony's shoulder, but the result was nothing. I already have a conclusion in mind. Not only can it not interfere with the reality of the world of Teyvat, but the original members of the group cannot interfere with each other. I probably understand what's going on. What's the result? Xingye asked curiously. It should be. Rimuru's eyes flashed red and he said softly, is it a projection? Yes. Moyu said softly, but the live broadcast room does not project us into the world of Teyvat, but projects the world of Teyvat into our minds. Although it looks real, it is like the moon in the flowers and water in the mirror. It can be seen but cannot be touched. Similar to a dream? Although the world in front of you is lifelike, in the end it is just an illusion. Oh, Tony nodded slightly. That makes sense. What a pity, Rimuru looked disappointed, but then he smiled. But, is this a different kind of meeting for everyone now? Would you like to introduce yourself again? Isn't that necessary? Xing shook his head slightly and looked at Ying aside. Everyone knows it well and can recognize it at a glance. Besides, Ying is still waiting for us. Hear the words. Everyone's eyes turned to Ying. Ying, who was watched by everyone, had a thin smile on her face, but she did not speak. Hey, Ying, what are you looking at? Don't be in a daze. I've already said hello. Please tell me that Xian Diani is at Yujing Terrace. We have to get there quickly, otherwise it will be so crowded that we won't be able to squeeze in. Okay, let's go. Yingmei nodded slightly and took steps to keep up with Paimon. The moment he turned around, he didn't forget to wink at everyone. It seems it's not convenient to talk. Indeed, this matter is difficult to explain. Then, shall we follow? Let's go, under the Yujing stage. Paimeng led the way lightly, trying his best to introduce Liwei to Yingmei, who was also somewhat unfamiliar to her. Yingmei had a smile on her face, her hands behind her back, and she followed Paimon gently, responding from time to time. In addition, what Paimon didn't know was that there was no one behind her except Yingmei. There are 4 invisible ghosts following. So, Tony looked at the surrounding scenery curiously. Is this Liwei? It feels good. It's a pity, Rimuru said with some regret. In this state, I can't taste the food here, and I can't bring home the souvenirs. Xing smiled and said, if you really want it, I can ask Ying to purchase it on my behalf. Wouldn't it be nice to send it to you in a red envelope when the time comes? That's right, Rimuru nodded immediately. Moyu. Tony, who had a slight sense of déjà vu, turned to Moyu and asked, why do I always feel that the architectural style here is very similar to the ancient times of your country? Well, Moyu smiled and nodded. They are indeed very similar. How can it be different? After all, Liwei is the prototype. Everyone. Rimuru suddenly raised his hand and pointed. Look at the sky over there. Is that the Jade Pavilion? A whole building floating in the sky, see Gui. Everyone turned their heads to look. Beautiful, Tony's eyes lit up. Anti-gravity technology. Well, it looks good if it can be used to build an aerial fortress. Moyu explained. It can only be said that it is similar. Canoe Pavilion mainly has 2 cores. One is a local specialty ore in Teyvat called Floating Stone, which is a very special anti-gravity ore. The second one is the Immortal Family's talisman is here. Anti-gravity ore? Tony raised his hand and touched his chin, raised his head and said, it's worth studying, I kind of want it. Ying, if it's convenient, can you help me find this kind of ore later? Definitely, I will pay accordingly. Traveler Ying. No problem. Close black lens bracket. After receiving Tony's commission, Yingmei immediately responded in the group. This was a completely subconscious reply, which made Ying herself stunned for a moment. Well, it seems that the Adventurers Association has done too many commissions during this period, and it has become an occupational disease. It has to be changed. As Paimon and Yingmei ascended the Yujing platform, everyone's attention immediately turned towards the venue. Indeed, as Paimon said, there were huge crowds of people. The entire Yujing terrace was almost packed. It's so lively and there are so many people. Rimuru stepped on his feet and looked inside. Will the rock god of Liwei appear here by then? Probably, Moyu said with a smile on his lips, and it fell from the sky. Falling from the sky? Tony's mouth twitched. What kind of old-fashioned way is this? Moyu shook his head slightly. It's different from what you think. Difference? Tony asked curiously. What's different? Seeing the smile on the corner of Moyu's mouth, Xing had an unknown premonition in his heart for no reason. Wait, Moyu, there shouldn't be any accidents today, right? As soon as Xing said this, everyone, including Ying in front, was stunned. This. Rimuru scratched his head. When Hoshi said this, I suddenly had a bad premonition. Feel the same. Tony said tentatively. According to the usual routine, something will definitely happen today. Enemy attack? Natural disaster? Or coup? No, the corners of the eyes in front twitched slightly. Suddenly I had the idea of escape from Yujingtai. I said, Xing suddenly said. Today is the ceremony for inviting immortals, and the theme is inviting immortals. Why do I feel like something is going to happen to the rock god? No way. Rimuru was stunned. He is a god after all. What could happen? After all, Iwagami is one of the top group of pyramids in this world, right? How can something happen so easily? I think Xing is right. Tony said softly. It seems that the fall of gods is not a rare thing. During the invitation ceremony, the rock god was suddenly attacked and fell. This is indeed very dramatic and can also be used as a key point to promote the plot. Hiss. Rimuru took a breath. The fall of a god is a big deal. I think so. Xing turned to look at Moyu with a confident expression. Moyu, do you think that's the case? Everyone's eyes focused on Moyu again. Waiting for his response. Ahem. Facing everyone's gaze, Moyu coughed lightly. What? Xing is right. The rock god is dead. However, Morax is still alive. Look, I guessed it right. Xing blinked, then frowned. Wait a minute. What do you mean the rock god is dead but Morax is still alive? When the three of them were still in doubt, Ying in front seemed to understand something, and his expression slowly relaxed. Morax is the original name of the rock god, so, is it fake death? Worry for nothing. However, on this special day, Iwagami staged a show of fake death. Why? You can't just plan on fishing like Wendy, right? Ying suddenly became curious. I understand, Tony smiled and said, it should be fake death, right? Suspended animation. Rimuru suddenly said, that's right, but why is it at this time? To avoid enemies? Or something else? Forget it, don't think about it anymore, it's none of our business anyway, we can just watch the fun. That's right, Xing shrugged. I almost forgot that this is just a live broadcast, we can't interfere even if we want to. Besides, this matter shouldn't have anything to do with Ying, right? Traveler Ying. Just in case, I'd better ask first, Liyu's rock god is not my enemy, right? Close black lens bracket. Don't worry, it's not. Moyu said softly. The old man is a very nice person and easy to get along with. You will know when you meet him in the future. Traveler Ying. That's good. I was almost scared to death just now and was ready to run away. Close black lens bracket. Xing asked curiously. Why do you want to run away? Traveler Ying. Think about it. I, an outsider, appeared at the death scene of Iwagami alone. I am more suspicious than a local, right? Before I know the enemy and myself clearly, I have no intention of falling into the hands of the other party's believers. Close black lens bracket. No, Tony said a little strangely. Ying, your thoughts seem a bit weird. Things that have nothing to do with you originally, but once you run away, all the suspicions will fall on you immediately. It seems so, Rimuru said, but it seems like it's troublesome to run or not. Traveler Ying. How about? I just don't come in and take a look from a distance. In this way, no matter what happens, the suspicion won't fall on me, right? Close black lens bracket. Ying, look, there are a lot of people making wishes over there. I heard this is very effective. Should we go and have a look too? This one. Looking at the several incense burners in the venue, Ying was a little moved, but then she shook her head. Forget it, Paimon, we won't go in, just take a look outside. Paimon was stunned. But, don't you still want to ask Iwagami for news about your brother? We can't ask outside. Ying didn't know how to explain it for a moment. Did you just tell me that you were free? Seeing Ying suddenly stunned, Paimon put his hands on his hips. Your condition is very suspicious. Ying, ever since you left Mondstadt, you have been in a daze from time to time, and it was especially obvious today. Could it be that you are possessed by evil spirits? The corner of Yingmei's mouth twitched slightly. Then he directly raised his hand to pick up Paimon and walked aside. There are too many people here. I'll find a place where no one is around to explain to you. Besides, no matter what I say next, don't be surprised, okay? Paimon's eyes widened as he was being carried. What are you talking about? Could it be that besides me, you have other children? A string of black lines appeared on Ying's forehead. She decisively took out a string of candied haws and stuffed it into Paimon's mouth, blocking what she had not finished speaking. So sweet, feeling the sweet and sour taste in his mouth, Paimon turned his head and glared at Ying. Okay, Ying, you're actually hiding something delicious behind my back? Can't you even shut your mouth with food? Carrying Paimon to a deserted corner, Yingmei put one hand on her hips and said. Can you listen to me quietly now? Okay. Paimon chewed the candied haws and said with satisfaction. For the sake of Tonghulu, I will listen carefully. Alas, Yingmei covered her head with one hand and said softly, that's it. Just as Yingmei was explaining the existence of the group to Paimon. On the far wall at the edge of the venue, members sat in a row, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Prepared to witness the fall of the god. No one could see them anyway, so naturally they had to find a place with the best viewing angle. The time should be coming soon, right? Looking up at the position of the sun in the sky, the excitement on Rimaru's face was visible to the naked eye. Almost. Xing nodded slightly. The 7 stars, who are presiding over the ceremony of inviting immortals, are all here, so it should be soon. After looking at the glare in the venue, Moyu suddenly turned around and asked. By the way, Xing, is it really okay for you there? Is it really okay to play here? No problem. Xing, who was holding up his mobile phone to record the video, said with a smile. Don't worry, we won't take action until tonight. Dan Heng said it would be safer to return to the upper area at night. Everyone is resting now. At night, Li Mulu's eyes lit up. Xing, why don't you also start a live broadcast tonight? Now I can see the scenery of Liwei, and I can see the scenery of Yalila at night. I always feel very excited. Live broadcast? Forget it, don't talk about me anymore. Rimuru, are you really okay with being so leisurely? Me? Rimuru. No problem at all. Everything was arranged yesterday. Tisk. Moyu reminded softly. Xing is talking about the future, Rimuru. The future. Rimuru scratched his head in embarrassment, his expression seemed distressed. I don't know how to explain this kind of thing to Benimaru and the others. How about just saying no? Moyu turned around and said with a smile. With your prestige, no matter how outrageous you say, I think they will accept it quickly. It's not okay to not decide on hesitation, Rimuru. Strictly speaking, your time doesn't matter either. That's a lot. Not much. Rimuru blinked. But, is there really no problem with this? Although I think what Moyu said makes some sense. However, it is still a bit sloppy. They will choose to believe whatever they say about red pills. Real? There are always more solutions than problems? Xing said softly. If they don't believe it, you can reveal the existence of the group to them. Isn't that what you are doing? As for whether they will believe it, show them things that don't exist in your world. It should be easy to believe, right? This is not a bad idea. Rimuru nodded suddenly, and then said, but, what should I come up with to make it easier for them to believe? What do you think this is? Xing pointed to the cell phone that was filming. Yes. Rimuru suddenly realized and rubbed his hands in anticipation. I forgot about it myself. Xing, after I go back, what? Can you send me a game console and game cartridges? Although I don't have internet or anything like that over there, it's still good to play standalone. At least I can pass the time. Just a boring time. No problem. Xing smiled and nodded. I'll take some time to buy you some. Rimuru clasped his hands together, his eyes sparkling. Really, really, really. Thank you very much. In that case, Tony interjected. Do you need me to build you a private mobile terminal? If you want private satellites and signal-based stations, I can also get them for you. Rimuru was stunned. Mobile terminals, private satellites, signal-based stations. Wouldn't this be too expensive? These things seem to be very expensive, right? Not really, Tony smiled and said, I don't have much else, I just have a lot of money. Definitely, if you plan to give me something, I won't refuse. Yo, Xing said with a teasing look on his face. The fox's tail is finally exposed, Mr. Tony. Tony covered his mouth and coughed softly. What is a foxtail? It's obviously mutual benefit. Okay. I'm not cheating, everyone gets what they need. Yoshi, Rimuru clenched his fist and said, then it's settled. I'll prepare it when I get back. Tony's eyes lit up. Deal. I will get these done and delivered to you as quickly as possible. Problems that can be solved with money are not problems. Compared to that little money, Tony was undoubtedly more curious and excited about Otherworld's products. Anyway, it's fine on both sides. Everyone, please be quiet. In the venue, Ningguang, who was in a high position, stepped forward. The auspicious time has come. Tianchuan spoke with a concentrated light, and the ceremony site quickly became quiet. Everyone who was chatting also stopped chatting and unanimously turned their attention to the center of the venue. Is it finally starting? I don't know what big scene there will be. Didn't Moyu just say that it fell from the sky? Just fell down? I guess so. Noon has arrived. The annual ceremony of inviting immortals has begun. Ning Guang in the venue looked solemn, raised his hands slightly, and the rock elemental power quickly condensed into several gems. When the time is right, He raises the sword finger in his right hand, and the gems surrounding his body fly out and are embedded in the incense burner in the center of the venue. The formation embedded in the incense burner suddenly activated. A golden beam of light rose into the sky. At this moment, everyone on the Yujing stage was looking forward to the arrival of Emperor Yanwang. The wind and clouds in the sky were changing, and there seemed to be a shadow swimming in the clouds. Looks like a dragon? Rimuru looked at this scene with wide eyes. See Gui, it turns out that the true form of the rock god is actually a dragon? It's completely different from Veldra's form, so handsome. Dragon? Tony took a deep breath. It is indeed a worthwhile trip to see creatures that only exist in fantasy appear. Otherworld is really awesome. Fantasy creatures? Hearing this, Moyu shook his head slightly. No, Tony, even in our world, dragons are real creatures. They're not fantasy creatures. It's just not very common now. It doesn't mean they don't exist. Several question marks popped up on Tony's head, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Co-author, dragons don't just exist in Otherworld. Are there dragons in their world too? What a hell. Don't worry, Xing blinked and said curiously. What do the dragons in your world look like? Forehead. When asked by Xing, Moyu's eyes twitched. How should I put it? There are all kinds of weird dragons, two-legged ones, long-winged ones, eel-like ones, and spider-like ones. In short, not many are normal. Dragon. Foreigners are obsessed with dragons, but they never know much about them. You can only rely on your own imagination to piece together the image. That's why there are so many, 4 different images. It's hard to hold back. Everyone nodded unanimously. So there are so many weird dragons? Well, I have learned a lot. But then again, what looks like a spider, is it still a dragon? Spider dragon? Dragon spider? Hey, Choji, everyone, stop talking. Things have changed. Ying, who was standing in the corridor behind the wall, raised his head slightly and reminded softly. If nothing happens, there will be an accident soon. Accompanied by several low thunders, the originally bright sky suddenly became dim. A small whine came. The Rock King Emperor, who was still swimming in the clouds before, froze up, and then he fell straight down towards the venue. Oh, it's about to fall. Star, snap quickly, don't miss it. Don't worry, my shooting skills are unanimously recognized by everyone. Ying half squinted her eyes and looked at these guys with a speechless face. Then a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Xing, remember to send me a copy later. No problem. Paimon opened his mouth and looked at Ying, who was talking to himself, but hesitated to speak. Although Ying had already explained it to her very well. But this scene is weird no matter how you look at it, okay? It's not that she doesn't believe in Ying, it's just that it's a little hard to accept for a moment. In a daze, there was a loud noise. A black shadow fell from the sky, directly knocking over the incense burner and tributes in the center of the venue. This horrifying scene caused waves of exclamations. Wait until some smoke and dust dissipates in the venue. A Linlong lying in the middle of the venue, obviously rolling his eyes, suddenly came into everyone's sight. Emperor Ning Guang, who was the closest, felt his heartbeat faster than ever. It's not excitement, it's panic. This kind of scene is unprecedented. The panic on Ning Guang's face could hardly be concealed. He gently took a step forward. Looking at the motionless emperor, Ning Guang stretched out his hand to test the other person's breath as if he was dumbfounded. This kind of operation that is likely to go wrong in ordinary people is actually applied here. It can only be said that at this moment, Ning Guang was in a state of panic. She had forgotten that Mephisto didn't need to breathe. When she came to her senses, her mind was running wildly. Finally, he gritted his teeth fiercely, turned around and shouted coldly. The emperor was assassinated, the whole place was sealed off. The most important thing now is to stabilize the current situation. The truth can only be investigated in the future. It's best to temporarily find a scapegoat to divert all the blame and draw everyone's attention away. In this way, They Kixing will have enough time. The emperor was assassinated? These words were like thunder exploding in everyone's hearts. Most of the audience in the venue looked at the Linlong who fell in the venue in disbelief. The emperor was assassinated? Died? After the shock, an unspeakable panic suddenly surged in my heart. As a country that has walked with God for 3,700 years, it is impossible to imagine what it will be like when the emperor is no longer there. But Qianyanjun had already entered the scene and began to take control of the situation. Shing, should we go over and take a closer look? Okay. Let's go. Two figures jumped down from the wall and landed gently beside the rock god dragon as if they were in a deserted place. He's really handsome. Crouching next to the dragon's body, Rimuru looked at him curiously. It seems to be slightly different from the one in the ancient legend? Shing looked at it for a while and said softly. It really looks like. The shape of this body is very similar to the immortal star god recorded in the train think tank, but there are some differences, and it's a little smaller in size. But it should be similar to the Vidyadhara Dragon Lord from the Immortal Boat Alliance Vidyadhara clan, right? Isn't that almost the same? There's just one color difference, but the prototypes are exactly the same. What a pity. Rimuru stood up and sighed with regret. What a pity. Moyu raised an eyebrow. Hey, let me tell you, Rimuru, do you want to use the predator? Hey. Rimuru scratched his head. Well, maybe I have a sense of crisis, so when I saw such a big dragon, I wondered if I could get new skills or mimicry if I could eat it with a predator. I really didn't mean it. Good for you. But, it's true, if you master the ability of predator. Maybe you would see some powerful creature and want to try to swallow it, and he couldn't blame Rimuru. At the same time, a certain figure standing on the top of Tianung Mountain shivered suddenly. The golden eyes were filled with doubtful colors. His eyes slowly focused on the venue for the immortal invitation ceremony. It was obvious that there was no one around his Fa Shen. But why? Do I always feel like I'm covered in hair? Illusion. Done. After saving the video on his phone, Shing put his hands on his hips and said, Everyone, I have to evacuate first. There are still operations in the evening. See you then. It's important to rest. Rimuru nodded immediately. Besides, we're looking forward to it. It's better not to expect too much. Shing shook his head slightly. Compared with the beautiful appearance of Liwei, Belobog of Yalila No. 6 is not outstanding, and it may disappoint you. If we were to use the word vibrant to describe the current Liwei, then Yalila can only be called an extremely cold hell, wandering between life and death. Okay, everyone, see you tonight. Shing waved his hands towards everyone, and his figure slowly disappeared. Apparently he left the live broadcast room directly. Then it's time for me to withdraw. Tony touched his beard and turned to look at Moyu. You'll be home tomorrow, right? Moyu said. If there is no surprise, I will be there. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. I've been holding back a lot of questions to ask. Tony nodded, and his figure disappeared. They're all gone. Rimuru scratched his head. Moyu, should we take this opportunity to visit Liwei Port? Forget it. Moyu shook his head. It's even more uncomfortable if you can't see or touch it. Let's wait and see when it becomes possible to travel through the world. No matter how beautiful the scenery in front of you is, it is just a projection after all. Visible but not tangible. If you are interested in something but can't touch it, it will only be more uncomfortable. That's true. Rimuru reluctantly looked at the ancestor Fa Shay in the center of the venue, and then looked away. Then I'll withdraw first. It's really torture to see if you can eat or not. Don't worry, see you in the evening. Wait. Rimuru, Moyu called out to Rimuru. If possible, prepare some recovery medicine tonight. There will probably be a fierce battle on Xing's side. Recovery medicine? Don't worry, leave it to me. Unfortunately, other than recovery medicine, I can't help you much. Rimuru nodded with a smile on his face, and then exited the live broadcast room. It's just recovery pills, there are plenty of them. If he could help Shing, he would be super happy. Looking at Ying, who was being interrogated by Qianyanjun in the distance, Moyu nodded slightly at the other party and then withdrew. Seeing that everyone had withdrawn, Ying shrugged and chose to turn off the live broadcast. The first live broadcast was a bit sloppy. I didn't even have a good chat with everyone. Let's try it again at a better time next time. MCU. Empire State Building. World-class projection. Moyu, who returned from the live broadcast room, slowly opened his eyes. I didn't expect that the live broadcast room would be of this type. Unfortunately, I didn't expect this at the beginning. I wasn't prepared enough and didn't gain much. As he spoke, Moyu raised his hand slightly, and a ball of dark energy gathered in his hand. Transformation. The gene engine was running, and the invisible, colorless, dark energy without any attributes in his hand began to change according to some special rules. After a moment, A dazzling light replaced the invisible colorless dark energy. With a slight change of mind, the dazzling light in his hand changed again. From dazzling pure white, one turned into 7. Red fire, blue water, cyan wind, purple thunder, green grass, light blue ice, orange rock. 7 different elemental powers slowly rotated in Moyu's palm. It's a pity. The underlying logical framework is not clear, otherwise we could start building a combat engine that integrates elements. As soon as he held his hand, all the light completely dissipated. Fighting Buddha's combat specialized gene already has some ability to control elements. They are wind and fire. As for other elements, although they can also be forcibly transformed through the combat engine, their power is really impressive. Since there is foundation and possibility, Moyu naturally does not want to be limited to this. How could it be possible with just wind and fire? Only children make choices, adults definitely want them all. Even so, Moyu is not in a hurry. Building a combat engine is not something that can be accomplished overnight. Now his main focus is on the integration of space system ability. After the space-time engine that integrates all spatial abilities is completed and put into use, it will be more appropriate to consider the element engine. Which one has higher priority is clear at a glance. But after thinking for a moment, Moyu stood up, raised his hand and made a light stroke. The portal to Kamar Taj's library suddenly opened. Then he stepped into it. In the library, the administrator who was sorting out the books frowned. He was about to scold him, but after seeing that it was Moyu who passed through the portal, his expression straightened. "Mr. Moyu, is there anything I can help you with?" "Hello, magician." Facing the administrator's question, Moyu said softly. "I want to take a look at the map of the universe. I don't know if it's convenient." "Map?" The administrator was stunned, then nodded. "Definitely, please wait." After the words fell, the administrator turned around and took down a thick book from the bookshelf on the left. All known locations in the universe are recorded here. There are detailed coordinates in the notes. I hope they can help you. "Thank you so much." After thanking the administrator, Moyu took the heavy book and opened it with a glimmer of light in his eyes. After copying the contents of the entire book to the dark plane one by one, he easily found the specific content he wanted. Coordinate. Found it. There was a smile on Moyu's face. He raised his hand and several thick books appeared in his hand. He handed it to the administrator along with the map just now. "These books will also be returned together. Please magician help me register them." "Okay." The administrator took the book and nodded to express understanding. Before he could say anything more, Moyu had already turned around and stepped through the portal. The door also closed. Looking at this scene, the administrator just shook his head and turned around to continue his work of organizing books. Sling rings are generally not available for use in libraries. But Ancient One and Moyu just now are special cases. The former, as the Sorcerer Supreme, can do anything in Kamar Taj, and the latter was specially ordered by the Ancient One. Naturally, no one would raise any objections, let alone ask why. Just follow the Sorcerer Supreme's orders. The other end. Moyu, who passed through the portal, did not return to the Empire State Building. Instead, he appeared outside a dilapidated, desolate, blind and devastated abandoned planet. As for why it appears here, it's just that the coordinates were changed at the moment of passing through the portal. The current planet is called Morag, and don't worry about the purpose of coming here. It is the Cosmic Spirit Ball, or the power gem inside the Cosmic Spirit Ball. In Moyu's plan, he has no intention of attacking the Infinite Rough Stone first. The reason is also very simple, as I have said before. The timeline of the MCU is circular, everything happens and ends at the same time. This means that certain plots cannot be changed. This is an absolute point in time. What should happen will definitely happen, irreversibly and irreversibly. If you really want to break through this layer of shackles, you must have the power to transcend multiple levels. Otherwise, even if the universe is destroyed, it cannot be changed if it cannot be changed. It is not difficult to know how difficult this is by referring to Heichichi's experience. To save Christine, constantly reinvent time, constantly start over. But Christine will always die in various unexpected ways. In the end, the universe was shattered by Heichichi's sexy manipulation. However, even this did not break the absolute point in time when Christine was certain to die. At that time, Heichichi had already half-stepped into the level of diversity. I had a back and forth fight with Infinite Gems Ultron with a few pendants. In the end, nothing changed. This shows how tricky absolute point in time is. If you don't have the power to transcend multiple levels, it's best not to touch this thing. But now, things are different. Not to mention whether the legal identity you brought with you when traveling through time overrides the rules. The existence of group must be above the plural rules. This is true even if the functions in this group seem to be very few now. Otherwise, the Ancient One magician would not see a foggy future after using the time gem. The absolute timing of the MCU doesn't work for him and Tony. The absolute rule has been broken. Whatever he and Tony do next will be reasonable. In this case, Moyu will naturally not let go of the infinite gems that can accelerate his growth. Although this thing is only useful in this universe, it only contains 6 stones when taken out. But who says infinite gems must be used as trump cards? That thing will only become a stepping stone for Moyu to move to a higher level. No matter how powerful a foreign object is, it is still just a foreign object, a power that does not belong to oneself. Once lost, the holder will be instantly knocked back to his original form. What's more, infinite gems are not necessarily that powerful. In one sentence from the Life Tribunal, these things are just a few rotten rocks. Even Kong the Conqueror's Time Management Bureau can use the Infinity Stones as paperweights and table mats. This thing is really not unusual, but at least now, the Infinite Rough Stone can save Moyu from taking many detours. Not to mention anything else, once you have 6 rough stones, you can not only speed up the construction progress of Space-Time Engine and Element Engine, but also allow Moyu to further develop the Concept Engine combat module. Even Void and Anti-Void will be included. Why not do it? Having many skills does not overwhelm the body, and Moyu never dislikes the fact that he has too many means. You don't have to be proficient, but you can't live without it. Don't wait until you encounter a similar attack before thinking about how to break it. Then it's too late. The fiery eyes and golden eyes open. Read the dark data of the entire planet and immediately locate the temple where the cosmic spirit ball is placed. With a swipe of his hand, the portal opened again. After crossing over, the cosmic spirit ball suddenly came into view. It seems too simple. Ignoring the plasma grid that blocked the cosmic spirit ball, Moyu rolled up his sleeves and took out the cosmic spirit ball. Dark data is scanned and genetic engines are running. The cosmic spirit ball sealing the power gem rotates and opens. In an instant, the purple light belonging to the power gem illuminated the entire secret room. This is it. Looking at the power gem in front of him, Moyu raised his eyebrows and raised his right hand to grab it. Boom! The terrifying impact centered on the power gem and spread suddenly. The entire secret room was directly reduced to ruins by this overflowing power. Dark purple lines constantly spread upwards along Moyu's right hand, until it spreads all over the body. The power gem in the palm of his hand was constantly stirring, and waves of huge power were constantly poured into Moyu's body. But Moyu remained calm and waited quietly. Among the 6 infinite gems, the power gem has the most stringent conditions for use. Although the other rough stones have their own shortcomings, they are not as domineering as the power rough stone. If the holder does not have a powerful physical body but wants to control the power gem, then the moment it comes into contact with the power gem, it will be completely annihilated by the huge power in the power gem. Generally speaking, the holder of the power gem uses some kind of weapon as a carrier to control the power gem. For example, Ronin's hammer, Thanos' infinity gauntlet, etc. Although there are those who control the power stone with a pure body, they are extremely rare. And coincidentally, Moyu was one of those extremely rare ones. The terrifying strength of Kamigawa's beast body just gives him the ability to directly control the power stone with his physical body. After confirming that the holder can withstand his own strength, the power stone seemed to recognize Moyu and became completely quiet. Holding the power gem in his hand, Moyu suddenly felt like he could break the planet under his feet with one punch. And, it's not an illusion, it can really be done. A true star-shattering punch. This power is indeed very easy for people to become addicted to. Feeling the endless terrifying power, Moyu took a deep breath to calm down his emotions. Although this power is very powerful, it is not yet your own. The next thing to do is to make this power your own. This terrifying power can be exerted even without giving up the power stone. This is what Moyu wants to achieve. The next step is to collect data, analyze the rules, and then create an exclusive genetic engine to use this power for your own use. He looked at the power gem that seemed to be embedded in his palm. Moyu looked away, the portal opened again, and then he stepped into it and fell on the couch as usual. Now that the power stone has been obtained, it is time to research. As for the space gem in Tesseract, that's not urgent yet. He also uses Tesseract as bait to fish, waiting for the Mad Titan and Loki to come and give him the mind gem. Let's leave it to Snake and Shield for now. Meanwhile, Kamar Taj, the Ancient One magician who was observing other dimensions, withdrew his gaze and slowly looked in the direction of the Empire State Building. The Power Stone? There are 3 infinite gems on Earth at the same time, and I don't know if they are good or bad. Oh, can't you let me worry less? Ancient One sighed helplessly, as if he had made some decision. Raising his hand and tapping lightly, the space in front of him shattered, and the entrance to the mirror space was opened. Then he stepped into it. Infinite Gem's power. This gem can make everything possible and imagination into reality. The user can master and control all power and energy through it. All physical abilities can also be copied to enhance the user's own attack and defense abilities, giving them unlimited physical power. And this gem is also the self-glue of all things in the universe. The above is only within the single universe. In addition, the power gem can also greatly strengthen the power of the other 5 infinite gems. Any gem plus a power gem can achieve the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. Except for the set of 7 infinite gems transformed by the Nemesis. For any set of infinite gems in the multi-universe, the Power Stone is the absolute core. As long as the power gem exists, the reality gem will not drain the user's life force, the mind gem will become relatively stable, and the soul gem will no longer be hungry. It can erase all side effects of the remaining few gems. Let the 6 gems achieve a special balance, similar to how the tiger talisman balances yin and yang in the Chinese zodiac talisman. It is the most important existence among the 6 gems. In terms of mystery alone, the Power Stone is not outstanding, but its role is unquestionable. After getting the power gem and understanding it in depth, it easily shattered Mo Yu's inherent impression of it, shocking Mo Yu's heart and soul. The user can master and control all power and energy through it. The power gem is not the limit of a single rule, it is not pure. At least it's not as extreme as the other 5 gemstones. Rather, it is a combination of many rules. This is also the main reason why it can be used as the glue of all things in the universe. If you have to use one word to describe it, it can be a moderate or a hexagonal warrior. Incomparably huge destructive power. This is just the appearance of the Power Stone. At its core, this is not the case. The power gem is almost omnipotent. It can pry time, break space, tamper with reality, affect the mind, and even break the soul. There are no flaws or shortcomings. If infinite gems can continue to grow, then the Power Stone will be the most terrifying existence. Dominate. Unfortunately, because of the words of the Life Tribunal, the upper limit of infinite gems has been completely locked. If the treasure has a spirit, it might be pointed at the nose of the Court of Life and scolded. This guy completely cut off their promotion path with just one sentence, which is really a bit unlucky. In today's Marvel multi-universe, the upper limit that the 6 gems can reach can only be multidimensional, and it cannot go any higher. The MCU is even worse, being directly weakened to a single level. You can't even kill diversity. But it's normal. In the final analysis, it's just a product within the rules. In the eyes of almighty universe-level beings like the Life Tribunal, they are nothing more than rotten rocks. But the Life Court is not the end either. In the omnipotent world of Marvel, OAA has the final say. The Tribunal of Life and all that. At best they can only be considered servants. Forget it, it's useless to think about it so much now. Moyu shook his head slightly and put back his divergent thinking. He hasn't even figured out the Power Stone yet, so what does he want from the Life Tribunal? What OAA to consider? Is that kind of abstract existence something he can understand now? It's better to seize the time to study your own combat engine. Thanks to the Power Gem, the research and development of the combat engine is progressing much faster than Moyu expected. After all, now that there are ready-made templates, the collection of various data is even smoother. If he can't get up quickly, then he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill him. If all goes well, it will take no more than 3 months to complete the installation of the spacetime engine and elemental engine. It should be completed before the progress bar is full next time. The only flaw now is probably the lack of a large celestial computer such as a large clock. If only there could be a large supercomputer as an auxiliary. Research progress should be faster, but alas, he didn't. Is there anything similar in the MCU? The supreme wisdom of the Kree Empire? It should. Not count, right? Maybe you can find a chance to check it out. Besides, maybe you can ask Stargang for help. After all, the body of the intelligent star god is a large-scale celestial computer. Let's find an opportunity to ask when the live broadcast is on in the evening. If stars can be obtained, what would be a better reward? Thinking of this, Moyu couldn't help but fell into deep thought. There doesn't seem to be much he can do right now. This is a bit painful. At this time of thinking, don't worry. The sparking portal opened again. Moyu, who felt the fluctuations in the space, turned around instantly, and the first thing he saw were two boys and girls wearing prison uniforms. His hair was disheveled and slovenly, and he looked like a little beggar who had just emerged from the garbage. When their eyes met, the two immediately looked away and shrank their heads, like frightened rabbits. I said, Ancient One Magician. Moyu rubbed his temples. Can you explain it? This shouldn't be a surprise, right? The voice of the Ancient One Magician came slowly. Do you still remember the advice you gave me before? I plan to adopt some of it, and I want to ask you for a favor. Advice? Help. Moyu frowned. You mean? Speaking of this, Moyu's eyes flashed with fire, and he carefully looked at the man and woman behind the portal. Although a bit dirty and disheveled, but dark data doesn't lie. Wanda Django Maximov, Pietro Django Maximov. Good guys, Scarlet Witch Wanda, Speedster Quicksilver. Looking at this situation, have these two people become HYDRA's experimental subjects at such an early stage? In the original timeline, the two did not escape from the Hydra base in Sokovia until 15 years ago. It's only 8 years now. In other words, the two of them have been HYDRA's experimental subjects for 7 years? How much tenacity does it take to persist in that hell-like place for 7 years? Little guys, go in, he will be your guardian from today on. The Ancient One Magician's voice sounded again, and the portal shrank back, swallowing the two of them in, and then quickly dissipated. Perhaps it was the first time they came to such a luxurious interior, and both of them were a little at a loss. He didn't even dare to take a step at all, as if taking one step would pollute the clean and tidy environment. The corners of Moyu's eyes twitched slightly, and he secretly said, Magician, can I refuse this? It's definitely better for you to teach yourself than for me, and isn't it your chosen successor? What's the point of letting me teach you? After the year, Time Gem will lend you a period of time, and by the way, let you have access to Soul Gem for 3 days. Make a deal. Moyu agreed very readily, without any hesitation. I asked Ancient One Magician to borrow Time Gem before, but he refused to give it to me. To say the least, guarding the Time Gem is the duty of the Sorcerer Supreme. Now not only can you borrow Time Gem for a period of time, but you can even have access to Soul Gem for 3 days. What are your principles? Magician. Since the Ancient One Magician's principles can be broken, I can't do it myself. It's such a huge profit this time, although I agreed. But, how to arrange it? If I remember correctly, Wanda at the moment was in a semi-awakening state. In an extremely strong subconscious state, a certain degree of probability modification can be achieved. And Pietro is not awakening yet. The Mind Gem can guide two people and perform awakening, and there is no reason why the Power Gem cannot do this. Maybe. You can try it, Pietro, Wanda, right? Moyu turned around and said softly, Did the Ancient One Magician arrange the corresponding identity information for you? Sir. Facing Moyu's gaze, Pietro gritted his teeth, took a gentle step, and stood in front of Wanda. Sorry, no. No. That's it. Looking at the two people who were full of uneasiness, Moyu nodded secretly. Wait a minute. As he said that, Moyu's eyes flickered. The genetic engine was already turning, and then he raised his hand and pressed it gently. The space in front of him surged like waves. Move your hands up and down, push left and right. The single bathroom on the left seems to have been mirrored and turned into 2 single rooms. It was as if the thumb, index finger and middle finger were clasping something. With a slight twist clockwise, the luxurious bedroom on the right was directly replicated into 3 copies. After doing all this, Z gently snapped his fingers. Two new sets of clothes and toiletries that had not been opened fell on the sofa on the left. Pietro and Wanda watched this scene unfold, dumbfounded. It's not that Moyu was showing off his skills, but the top floor of the Empire State Building was not originally designed for housing. Although money is God in the United States, it can even open the door for congressmen to use the top floor of the Empire State Building as housing. But no matter what, the original plan of the design cannot be changed. It is quite good to be able to change it into a luxurious house with one bedroom, one living room and one bathroom. Naturally, there are no guest rooms or anything like that. All right. After finishing these things, Moyu raised his head slightly. I will take care of the identity matter. What you have to do now is to take a good bath and tidy up, and then eat and drink enough. Since the Ancient One Magician has taken care of you, you can stay with me. Have a good sleep at night and recuperate your energy. We will discuss the rest tomorrow. Oh, okay. Okay. Pietro and Wanda recovered from the shock and responded hurriedly. The two looked at each other and nodded in unison. Then he walked cautiously, took his own toiletries and change of clothes from the sofa, lowered his head, and walked to the bathroom with small steps. After watching the two of them walk into the bathroom, Moyu slowly turned back. I started to think about the training plan for the two of them. It's not that he wants to cause trouble, but the Ancient One Magician gave him too much. There is absolutely no reason to refuse. Moreover, you can also take the opportunity to learn about one of the three oldest powers in the almighty universe. Why not do it? Although he has a progress bar, Goldfinger, that is almost a bug. But you can't expect to get some incredible level of ability every time. The first time was a super gene, the second time was an invitation to join the group, and who knows what the third time was. Before the unknown becomes known, it is always good to be more prepared. To be honest, Ancient One Magician's sudden move really surprised him. Most of the reasons why he gave advice to the Ancient One Magician were just to test the attitude of the Ancient One Magician. Unexpectedly, the other party actually came for real? Wanda is already a candidate for Sorcerer Supreme, but what about Strange? If the Ancient One Magician has really made his decision, so no matter which aspect you look at, Strange can't compete with Wanda at all. The priorities of the two are not in the same dimension at all. Origin magic power is one of the three oldest powers in the almighty universe. Even after the MCU has been whittled down to become origin magic power, its upper limit can still easily exceed the super single level, approaching the multi-universe level. You know, in the original timeline, Wanda, who had no systematic study at all, has been ranked at the top of many superheroes thanks to the power of I am thinking. After getting the Book of Darkness and studying it systematically for a period of time, he grew to the point where Strange could only run away when he saw it. One can imagine how abnormal the growth rate of Chaos Force is. As for Pietro, the twin, that's more ordinary. Although the names are both Quicksilver, compared to the Quicksilver next door, which is so fast that it can transcend time, it is completely different from the same dimension. If the one next door can be called a time walker, then the one over here can only be regarded as a sonic walker. The gap is a little over 100 million, but even so, Pietro's potential is not small. As long as his speed can reach Mach 20 or even Mach 30, he still cannot be underestimated. The action of force is reciprocal, speed, that is, force. It's just that this requires a strong body as support, otherwise if you attack at that speed, you will probably be the first to be broken. In the original timeline, Wanda had begun awakening when she was 10 years old. Later, she was exposed to the Mind Gem in HYDRA's testing base before she could fully awaken the origin magic power. The same was true for Pietro. Since Mind Gem can do it, then. Thinking of this, Moyu lowered his head and looked at the quiet power gem in his palm. Maybe give it a try. Now that he can perfectly control the power of the Power Stone, there is no possibility of accidentally bursting the two of them. In this way, it may be possible to directly use the Power Stone's ability to completely awaken the two people's power. No need to wait years for Mind Gem to arrive at your doorstep. So, is this considered training? Moyu was unexpectedly a little excited when he thought that Wanda might be trained by him to become the most powerful Sorcerer Supreme. The training strategy for two people is easy to plan. But before that, there is one more important thing that needs to be resolved. It's not a matter of identity information. That kind of thing can be as simple as a dark data intrusion. The important thing is the choice of the two of them. It remains to be seen whether Wanda and Pietro are willing to truly step into this complex world. Moyu didn't want to go beyond their subjective opinions and make a choice for them. Only after the two of them have thought carefully and decided to step into the more complex side of the world. Mo Worry would choose to launch this plan. After all, being a superhero is not that easy, and there is nothing good to be. Jirillo v. Nightstand's mind rang. Xing, who had rested all afternoon, subconsciously raised his hand to turn off the alarm, then turned over and sat up from the bed. Is it time? Looking at the time on the alarm clock, Xing raised his hand and stretched. I don't know if Yu Qi and Dan Heng are up yet. I hope everything goes well tonight. He stood up, straightened his clothes, and opened the door. March Chi, who was about to knock on the door with his hand raised, suddenly came into view. Hey, I'm up. Looking at Xing, who had already risen, March Chi raised his smile and waved his hand. How was your rest? Not bad. Xing smiled and nodded. Is everyone ready? That's for sure. March 7th put his hands on his hips. Everyone from Dihuo has gathered on the first floor, but now there is bad news. Bad news? Hearing this, Xing was slightly startled. What bad news? Could it be that the silver-maned iron guards chased them to the lower area? Worse than this, March 7th sighed. I heard from Zaire that when everyone was resting in the afternoon to prepare for the battle, Branya left a letter and ran back to the upper area. Here, take a look too. With that said, March 7th took out the letter from his pocket and handed it to Xing. After carefully reading the letter in his hand, Xing was silent for a moment. It seems that the Star Corps incident has hit Branya a bit hard. Although I understand, I really can't empathize with it. But is it really okay for Branya to return to the upper area alone at this time? March. After putting away the letter, Xingchen said, let's go meet everyone. We have to leave quickly. She didn't expect this at all. Branya goes back alone or something. Even though Cocolia is Branya's adoptive mother, the Star Corps is an uncertain factor after all and is too dangerous. Once the Star Corps explodes again, it is difficult to imagine any major disaster. It seems everyone is thinking the same thing. March 7th quickly nodded. Then let's leave quickly. The sooner the Star Corps is sealed, the better. Everyone has the same goal, and the speed of assembly is also very fast. After everyone is present, quickly return to the upper city through the furnace core. It's finally here. What should we do first now? According to the letter left by Miss Branya, our best choice at the moment is to contact the Landau siblings. Well, Silva to be precise. Okay, Machine House, let's get going. Yongdong Ridge. Under the Star Corps restraint device, Cocolia and Branya are establishing themselves here. The atmosphere was dull with a bit of dead silence. Branya comes back to seek answers and the truth. And Cocolia, as Branya wished, revealed everything that Belobog had to face, leaving nothing behind. Including but not limited to. Even if the Star Core is sealed, the created rift will not die, the frozen planet will not recover, the Earth's marrow resources are about to be exhausted, and the survival materials are only enough for the people of Belobog to survive at most. The absolute truth of 3 months and so on. The many pieces of information that hit her face brought Branya only despair. Why is this happening? Branya covered her head and muttered to herself. Although I was mentally prepared before asking, but after hearing this from Cocolia, Branya was still shocked. The ever-expanding rift, endless monsters to kill, the depletion of Earth energy, and the shortage of survival materials. All the major elements that sustain Belobog's survival are on the edge of a cliff. It's only a matter of time before he falls off the cliff and is doomed. And this time is only a few months, less than half a year. It was countless times worse than she had imagined before. Looking at the shocked Branya, Cocolia raised her head slightly and said, this is the desperate situation that Belobog needs to face, and it is also the truth you want to understand, Branya. I had a glimpse of hell many years ago. The arrival of the pioneers was beyond Cocolia's expectations. But they do also bring new options. On one side is the new world promised by the Star Corps, and on the other side are the new possibilities brought by the pioneers. Cocolia also had hesitation, but she soon figured out that right and wrong had been put aside by her. 2 possibilities, can you only choose one? Why can't it be both? Cocolia maintained its original judgment and looked forward to the new world promised by the Star Corps. But at the same time, she also pushed Branya to the side of the pioneers. Place new hope on Branya. It is no longer important who is right or wrong. Because there will definitely be a final confrontation between the two. If she wins, it means that these pioneers are nothing more than mediocrity, and the so-called new hope is nothing more than a mirror and a moon in the water. If she loses, that's fine. By then, she will be buried here and the star core will be sealed. And Branya will lead Belobog to a new future with the help of the pioneers. It doesn't matter which side wins, because they are just a death struggle before the final despair comes. Either fight before death, or die in silence. Belobog has no choice but to retreat. The atmosphere between the two fell silent. Branya didn't know what to say at all. Cocolia was not in a hurry, just wait patiently. The track to the future is ready. Now, all that's left is for the players to enter. I do not know how long it has been. After regaining consciousness, Branya slowly raised her head. Mother, do you really believe in the promise made by Xing? It was it that summoned the ice and snow in the frozen world, opened the door to the cracked world, and destroyed our civilization several times. Branya, Cocolia interrupted Branya's words and said softly. From the moment the extraterrestrial invaders arrived, this world has been sentenced to death, but the star core, it retains a glimmer of hope for Belobog. Call. Branya took a deep breath. Mother, this so-called ray of hope is nothing more than the star core's ruthless mockery of us. I learned from the star that those invaders from the sky are named Antimatter Legion. The reason why they invaded our world is precisely the path led by the star core. Wherever the star core goes, the antimatter army will surely follow. It's all because of the star core. It's the culprit that caused all of this to happen. Even so, is Mother still willing to believe in star core's promise? Cocolia remained silent, just turned around and looked up at the star core, and then said, So, is this your choice? I understand, Branya. Branya. Belobog doesn't have much time left, and I don't have much time left either. Standing under the star core, Cocolia lowered her head slightly and looked at her right hand that was almost eroded by ice. The emotional warmth in her eyes was slowly fading away. At the end of this, I want to hear your thoughts. Branya, who was still silent, did not fully understand the final farewell in Cocolia's words. She was sorting out her thoughts and wanted to give her own answer. After taking a deep breath, Branya raised her head firmly. I'm sorry, Mother, this last time. I can't stand by your side. You once said that the depths of human nature are filled with stupidity and cowardice. Perhaps this is true. Desperate situations will indeed reflect the darkest side of the human heart. But, Mother, you have missed those who survive and fight hard in desperate situations. I saw extremely dazzling light in them, on the front line of the penalty area, in the lower area, and in the corners that are ignored by you. The ancestors built this city with their hands and struggled to continue civilization in the swaying wind and snow. Even if this world is destined to fall apart, the road to the end should be paved by human hands, rather than leaving fate to this scourge that brings disaster. Branya seemed to be getting more and more excited, and her speaking speed was gradually increasing. We are great Asgardians elected by ordinary people, Mother. Our duty is to preserve the world built by humans. We are not gods or judges. You want to trample humanity under your feet and act as a referee and a god at the same time. I cannot allow this kind of thing. I understand, Branya. Cocolia seemed to have already understood Branya's choice, and the corners of her mouth curved. Branya would never let her down, and this time, too. At the same time, the bewitching voice of the star core sounded in Cocolia's mind again. This time, the emotional warmth in Cocolia's eyes completely dissipated. The two tracks have reached their respective ends. The final showdown is about to begin. The winner will decide what kind of future this world will lead. Let's stop the brainwashing, which, suddenly, several tearing air sounds suddenly sounded. Zaire, who led the charge, quickly rushed to Branya's side in a quantum shuttle manner, grabbed Branya's hand with one hand and led her back a short distance. The other hand was holding the giant scythe tightly, staring at Cocolia standing under the star core restraint device with a vigilant face. Xing, March 7th and Dan Heng came one after another. We're here after all. It's a pity, I thought you would be buried in the snowstorm. Cocolia turned her head, crossed her arms, and spoke in an extremely cold tone. Nice thought, witch. Zaire snorted coldly. We won't get there until we defeat you. Exair. Looking at the people rushing around him, Branya clasped one hand on his chest, feeling that the emotions in his chest were extremely agitated. I didn't even know what to say for a moment. Don't worry, Bronya, leave the rest to us. Shing smiled slightly at Bronya. We will keep our promise and completely seal the star core. Don't worry about other problems. I will find a way to bring you energy supply and survival supplies, except for the splitting of the world, which is currently not a solution. I can solve most problems by myself. For such a trivial matter, there is no need to bother GZ and Uncle Yang to come forward. There are many big dog owners in the group. As long as you take some local products from this world, you can get back a lot of supplies. I believe Mr. Tony will definitely be happy to do so. Etc. Thinking of this, Shing was suddenly stunned. She seemed to have accidentally forgotten something because she was too worried about Bronya's safety. Hiss, live broadcast, Shing found a moment to take a look. The screen was filled with question marks and at. It's over. Because I wanted to have a good rest, I blocked the group messages before taking a break. As a result, I accidentally lost the group members. Look at the various speculations and ideas among the group members. Shing felt slightly guilty. If she explains it properly, it should be no problem, right? Forget it, let's just drive. Ding, group member Pioneer Star, open the live broadcast room. Close black lens bracket. Trailblazer Star. Sorry, everyone, because the situation is urgent, I forgot to start the live broadcast. Almost immediately after the beep sounded, 4 figures instantly appeared not far behind Shing. Rimuru was the first to speak. It's finally open. We agreed to start the live broadcast at 8 o'clock. It's almost 10 o'clock now. We've been waiting for you for 2 hours. We thought you had an accident. Unexpectedly, did you just forget? Shing quietly turned around and blinked, then turned back with a serious face. Dan Heng, who had been paying attention to Shing, squinted his eyes and glanced at the empty area behind him from the corner of his eyes. Illusion? Then pretend nothing happened. The one holding the spear should be Dan Heng, right? He seemed to have glanced at us just now. Yingmei, who has a keen intuition, immediately noticed Dan Heng's tiny movements. He found us. Tony was slightly startled. That shouldn't be the case, right? No, Mo, you said softly. I guess he has been paying attention to Xing's movements and discovered Xing's movements just now. It's similar to Paimon's reaction. Yingmei nodded understandingly. Rimuru complained softly. That's because you're being too obvious, right? Yingmei's eyes twitched, not intending to refute. Rimuru was right after all. But can you blame her? Who makes her heart tremble for a while every time what Mo Yu says? Why did Kong join the Abyss camp? Why was the rock god assassinated during the ceremony to invite immortals? She's done her best, right? Depending on the situation, a fight is about to begin. Rimuru touched his chin and said loudly, Hey, Shing, I've prepared dozens of recovery medicines for you. The red envelope has been sent. Remember to accept it. Maybe it can help you later. Pioneer Star. Thank you, I won't say any more. I need to concentrate on the battle. Close black lens bracket. We will cheer for you. Yingmei put her hands on her hips and smiled. Come on, God. Are you just watching a show? Shing can now understand Ying's mood at noon today. It's really easy if things don't happen to you. It was pleasant at noon, but miserable at night. Did the retribution come so quickly? It's hard to resist. The city. Belobog's fate is sealed. Cocolia looked at Bronya in front of her calmly, and a smile reappeared on the corner of her mouth. It will unfold a new future in our hands. Compared to her own victory, she hopes that Bronya will be the final winner of this war. From the moment she abandoned Safeguard, in despair and chose to trade with Star Core. The future no longer belongs to her, but her child, Bronya, can lead to a completely different and bright future. Even if this is just a delusion. After shifting her gaze from Bronya to Shing and the others, Cocolia's expression became extremely cold. You will serve as the cornerstone of the new world. It is impossible to establish the new without destroying the old. A lance wrapped in cold ice appeared in Cocolia's hand, its blade pointed directly at the train set. As a great Asgardian, I ask you to get up, creation engine. After Cocolia gave the order, the entire Yongdong Ridge shook violently. Under the cliff in the distance, something huge seemed to be getting up. After a violent roar, a mechanical hand covering most of the mountaintop rose from the bottom of Yongdong Ridge and suddenly swept towards the crowd, as if swatting flies. This is the ancient machine of the city builders, please be careful. Bronya immediately issued a warning. Everyone who was already on alert stepped out of the attack range of the giant mechanical hand. When they stopped walking, everyone looked back. The owner of the giant mechanical hand was slowly revealed in front of everyone. The towering Yongdong Ridge can only reach half of the opponent's waist. One can imagine just how huge this behemoth is. So big, a robot 10,000 times bigger than Swaro. March 7th let out an incredible exclamation. Dan Heng just frowned. This thing is so big, how can I hit it? Xing's scalp also felt numb for a while. That body was taller than the mountain peak, and one slap could probably shatter the entire mountain top. How are these little carrots like them any different from flightless flies in front of this creation engine? Cocolia floated onto the shoulders of the creation engine and controlled the creation engine to crush the star core restraint device. The restrained star core was liberated and fell into the hands of Cocolia. Holding the star core in one hand and the lance in the other, Cocolia ordered again. Engine, crush them. After receiving the latest instructions, the creation engine's eyes flashed red, and a beam of light more than 10 meters thick swept towards everyone. Without hesitation, everyone dodged the attacks from the creation engine as quickly as possible. If you were hit by an attack of that magnitude, it would definitely not end well. However, the attacks they have to face are not just from the creation engine. At the same time that the star core was liberated, the antimatter army that had previously been frozen on the Yongdong Ridge was also unsealed. After discovering the existence of the breath of life, countless antimatter legions swarmed in and launched an attack. Monsters from the cracked world also appeared one after another, joining the battle group immediately under the control of Star Core. As soon as the battle began, the train crew was trapped in a predicament surrounded by a group of monsters. It feels like we can't finish it no matter how hard we fight. Sheng, Dan Heng, we have to think of a way quickly. March Chi, who was holding the bow and arrow, felt that his hands were almost stiff. However, the surging monsters and antimatter legions continued in an endless stream. Damn it, this big guy must be stopped. He killed a virtual pawn with his giant scythe, and then used quantum shuttle to dodge the light that was chasing after him from the creation engine. Zaire's face was full of anxiety. Just dealing with these endless void pawns and cracking monsters is already troublesome. What's even more disgusting is that from time to time, this creation engine acts as a wave of villains under the command of Cocolia, launching surprise attacks. If everyone hadn't reacted quickly enough, someone might have been injured. The situation seems to be a complete disadvantage. In this case, self-protection is a big problem, let alone rushing to defeat Cocolia. Catch the thief first, capture the king. Dan Heng raised his head and glanced at Cocolia, who was standing on the shoulders of the creation engine. Only by marching straight in to defeat Cocolia and sealing the star core can we break the current situation. I go. Sheng immediately took over the words and rushed straight to the creation engine. Everyone cover me. Good, everyone nodded unanimously. On the other side, I'm totally stuck in a fierce battle. Rimuru, who was watching, scratched his head. It would be great if we could take action. Tisk. I feel a little unhappy when I see my friends in trouble but can't help. When will this group become smarter? Tony next to him touched his chin. In this case, even if I put on Mark III and join the battle, I'm afraid it won't have much effect, right? It's okay to clear the monsters, but when faced with that kind of behemoth, Mark III seems to be just a small toy? Hiss. Speaking of which, do you want to try to build a giant battle armor yourself? Well, include it in the plan and think about it carefully when you go back. Don't worry. Moyu shook his head without any worries. Whether it is Xing, March 7th, or Dan Heng, they're not as fragile as everyone thinks. They all have backup hidden powers, and there are 2 elders in the sky who are raiding the formation. We don't need to worry at all, right? Even if the hidden power is not used, the creation engine, Cocolia and the star core are not enough. And there are Lao Yang and GZ watching in the sky. How many shots do you think Jitzi's railgun needs to deal with a living target like the creation engine? What's more, Lao Yang is still sure of escaping unharmed from the envoy's men. In addition, although the past of March 7th is temporarily unknown, Dan Heng's existence is enough to face most of the problems. You're really in a hurry. Dan Heng opens the big channel and talks to you directly. Can't these things in front of you be handled with one hand? One of the 5 heroes on the cloud, the Vidyadhara Dragon Lord. The Catastrophe Vanguard is not easy to use even when it comes. Compared with the battle between heroes in Xianzhou Luofu in the future, this can only be regarded as a small scene. So, Uncle Yang and GZ mentioned by Xing are currently observing in the sky. Yingmei raised her head slightly and looked towards the sky. The next moment, a red beam of light fell from the sky, instantly piercing through the creation engine's left arm that had just been raised to launch an attack. Wow, is this a railgun? Rimuru eyes lit up. I feel very strong and handsome. Is it strong? Moyu glanced at Rimuru. Why'd I feel like your black lightning is not as effective as it is? Forehead. Rimuru scratched his head awkwardly. These are two different things. Although the power of this railgun, it really doesn't look as good as black lightning. With the help of everyone, Xing finally broke through the siege and rushed to the platform where Cocolia was located along the mechanical arm that was paralyzed by Jitsi's railgun shot. Come yet? Seeing Xing break through the siege, Cocolia did not stop him at all and allowed Xing to break through the siege and come to him. Facing the star in front of her, Cocolia just looked down at the star core and whispered. Then, as a witness, come and witness the power of it. Before Xing could react, Cocolia pinched Xing's core and stuffed it into her chest. Staring at this scene, Xing Zhen was stunned. Cocolia's operation of inserting the star core into her body inexplicably reminded her of herself. Wasn't she also stuffed into the chest by Kafka with a star core? The moment the star core entered the body, the violent power belonging to the star core merged with Cocolia. Ice covered Cocolia's lower limbs, and her upper body transformed into a flowing starry sky. The whole body was embellished with a little ice and ice patterns. There was a crown carved from ice on her head, and the snow white and ice blue gradients flew in the cold wind, dancing freely in the middle. Although it still looks humanoid on the outside, it is no longer human at all on the inside. Feeling the pressure coming from Cocolia, Star took a deep breath. She didn't know if she could beat him, but she had to. He clenched the stick in his hand, raised his foot and stepped hard, launching a charge towards Cocolia. Ignorance, the cold words sounded, and the demonized Cocolia raised her hand, and the sharp ice in the sky condensed instantly, overwhelming the sky and rushing towards the stars crazily. Faced with this extremely dense coverage, Xingya could only wave the stick in his hand and try to dodge while breaking some of the ice. But as the number of Bing Ling's attacks increased, the air conditioning on the platform became stronger and stronger. Just relying on the power of fate is no longer enough to resist this extremely cold atmosphere. Xing's pace gradually became a little sluggish, and the bat that was constantly breaking ice was gradually covered with ice, making it more difficult to swing. Instead of getting closer, the distance between her and Cocolia grew further and further away. Human beings are always weak and stupid, and always underestimate their own capabilities. The stars that were constantly being pushed back in front of him made Cocolia's remaining hopes dashed. The possibilities brought by this group of pioneers from outside the world are completely insufficient to support Belobog's future. How can such a weak force compete with the Star Core? How can we bring a new future to Belobog? The hope placed on Bronya was shattered. In the end, can we still only place our hope in the new world promised by Star Core? How ridiculous! Looking at Xing, who was cornered, Cocolia raised her hand again. The lance that had been abandoned before slowly appeared in front of him. Begin with preservation and end with preservation. This blow was the beginning of completely abandoning the protection and throwing himself into destruction. Let me give you despair. It brought hope, but it was shattered so easily. All that was left for her was more despair, with hate for this group of so-called pioneers who bring hope. Cocolia threw this lance, which symbolized the will to protect and the authority of the great Asgardian. Take this as a farewell. The speed of the lance is very fast. Xing was almost unable to react as the frost had already spread to his body. The tip of the spear, wrapped in ice, had pierced through her chest in an instant. Her consciousness dissipated so quickly that Xing didn't even have time to use the recovery medicine Rimuru specially gave her, and her eyes were already in darkness. After the kinetic energy of the lance penetrated Xing's body, she fell from the creation engine with her body. Seeing this scene, the people who were still fighting below widened their eyes and exclaimed in disbelief. Star, the other end. In order not to disturb Xing's attention, he was among the people watching the battle from a distance. Except for Moyu, everyone's eyes widened in unison. But before everyone could react from this incredible scene, the scene in front of him changed suddenly. The ice-covered Yongdong Ridge, the huge amounts of creation engine, and the people fighting all disappeared. Instead, there was an unfamiliar starry sky. What just happened? Neither Rimuru nor Tony and Ying were confused about this situation. Look ahead. Moyu said softly. Don't forget that this is a live broadcast room, Xing's live broadcast room. All the projections we see are from the absolute perspective of Xing. Xing is now in a state of near death, so it's not difficult to determine what caused the scene I saw right now. Everyone raised their heads and looked forward, and Xing's figure was clearly visible. Sure enough, Yingmei came back to her senses immediately. So we are seeing all this from the perspective of the star's consciousness now? Can you still see images in people's subconscious? There is something about this live broadcast room. The human subconscious is a very magical thing. In a short moment on the outside, a whole life can be reviewed from beginning to end in the subconscious mind. The time span is called a long one. Is everyone here too? At the moment Xing also noticed the people behind him, and his face was also a little confused. Did I remember that I was penetrated by Kokolia's lance? Where is this place? Am I dead? Or not? With a lance pierced through the chest, no matter how you think about it, you are dead, right? But if he died, what would happen now? Not dead, or not completely dead. Moreover, this place always feels familiar. Oh, I remembered it. It seemed that this was where I saw Nanook, the star god of destruction, when I faced the doomsday beast last time. Who are you going to see this time? Xing, didn't you use the recovery medicine I gave you? Rimuru asked with some confusion. With the effect of the recovery medicine, as long as Xing didn't die suddenly and his body was destroyed, no matter how serious the injury was, he would recover instantly. Could it be that because the world is different, his recovery medicine is useless? Faced with Rimuru's question, Hoshi scratched his head in embarrassment. Sorry, my consciousness dissipated too quickly and I didn't have time to use it. Hearing this, Rimuru could only sigh helplessly. If the injured person loses consciousness in an instant, there is really nothing that can be done. This was a reminder to him that he had to find a way to prevent it. What happens now? Tony looked at everything around him curiously and speculated seriously. According to known routines, in this state, you, theoretically should be about to explode or cheat, right? Hearing this, Xing Zhen was stunned. Subconsciously, he turned his head and looked at the center of the starry sky in the distance, which was emitting rich light. Explosive seed, cheating or something, Xing is naturally relatively familiar. After all, she would also read novels when she was bored. Especially after joining the group, I often indulged in all kinds of strange things. Now that all this is happening to her, she always has a very magical feeling. So, you are the audience on the set now, and I am the protagonist of the movie? Xing couldn't help but complained, and said with a red face. What kind of shameful play is this? Cheating in front of everyone. Can you step back for a while and come back when I'm done? When you make fun of others and watch others, you feel full of joy. When the protagonist becomes himself, he feels full of shame. Why is she doing a live broadcast today? If you forget it at first, wouldn't it be better to keep forgetting it? The worst I can do is apologize after the war. Can you turn it off now? Hey, are you giving up now? Yingmei raised her eyebrows and said, you have a beautiful idea. During the immortal invitation ceremony, who was the first to take out his cell phone and take random pictures? Now that it's your turn, you want to drive us away? There's no door. Having said this, Yingmei deliberately raised her finger and pointed at Tony next to her. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The glasses hanging on Mr. Tony's face have built-in camera function, and they are full-frequency ultra-clear. Besides, even though Rimuru didn't bring anything, his great sage has been recording. I don't know much about Moyu, but it's obvious that he is unlikely to miss it. I'm probably the only one here who is relatively innocent. I didn't bring any equipment. Well, actually there is no need for it. Anyway, just ask Tony or Rimuru for one when the time comes. Yeah, Tony and Rimuru looked at each other with smiles on their faces. At the same time, he raised his hand in a victory gesture. Hiss, Xing took a breath of cold air, then decisively turned his head out of sight. He said self-deprecatingly, okay, I don't care if you are cruel, just watch it, it's up to you. Anyway, as long as I'm not embarrassed, I won't be the one who is embarrassed. Even so, she remembered this grudge. Write it down in a notebook, and wait for me next time you have a live broadcast. Taking a deep breath, I suppressed the unnecessary thoughts and the shame that kept pouring out of my heart. Shing stepped forward, heading towards the vague guidance, and embarked on the road to the starry sky. Her battle is not over yet. The promise to Branya has not been completed yet, so we cannot stop here. The four of them had their own thoughts, but they also became quiet and waited silently behind. Watching the stars pass through the afterimages of the past, heading towards that ray of light. Seeing Shing roaring, he pulled out the amber lance burning with red flames. Even if it's just a projection, an inexplicable feeling rippled in the hearts of the four of them involuntarily. That seems to be the will called preservation. At the same time that Shing pulled out the amber, a majestic figure flashed in everyone's minds. Even if you have never seen it, the name of that existence appeared in everyone's minds invariably. Star God Custodian Clipper. In a daze, everyone had returned to the ice-covered Yongdong Ridge. After recovering from the shock, Tony pushed up his glasses involuntarily and murmured, "So, is this the Star God?" "Yeah." Rimuru nodded silently. "Probably so." Ying remained silent and did not speak. In this silent atmosphere, Moyu just looked down at the palm of his right hand. If he wasn't delusional. Just now, when I caught a glimpse of the guardian star god Creeper, the Power Stone seemed to beat briefly. This feeling is like meeting a strong person who wants to fight with him. Excited, fanatical, and a little ready to move. Are you responding to my emotions? I didn't expect you to be quite militant. Gently clenching his right hand, Moyu looked at Shing holding amber. It's a pity that infinite gems will become an ordinary gem with no power after leaving the home universe. Otherwise, maybe he can still let this power gem that is willing to respond to his emotions try its best to fight. However, if there is a chance, I will let you be a witness. Star God is very strong. If he didn't have the blessing of the power gem now, he wouldn't even be qualified to fight against him. But that doesn't discourage him. Only when you have goals can you be motivated, right? The other side. Looking at the star that had resurrected from the dead and rekindled the amber, Cocolia was stunned. This is impossible. When will the will to protect have the ability to bring people back to life? Shing said he didn't want to answer, but slowly raised amber. She can't tell Cocolia that she is the protagonist, so it's normal to explode on the spot, cheat, or even come back from the dead, right? How can you have the nerve to say this? Shing is fine, that's great. Seeing that Shing was safe and sound, he even gained Amber's approval and gained control of the creation engine. March Chi and Dan Heng could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Xie and Branya were even more overjoyed. The battle continues. The four of them are still responsible for cleaning up the miscellaneous soldiers. The mission of defeating Cocolia was still placed on Shing. This time, I'm going to win. Star clenches the amber in her hand. The power to protect her destiny and the power to destroy her destiny are working together. At this moment, she was far more powerful than before. He would never lose to Cocolia so easily as before. It's just a death struggle. Facing the star showing a new attitude, Cocolia repeated her old tricks, and ice fell from the sky like rain. I won't let you succeed, looking at the same move that had made her extremely embarrassed before. Shing just raised the amber in his hand, and the blazing firelight instantly enveloped his whole body. Indestructible. Invisible barriers rose up, completely blocking the ice in the sky. Not only did the icy ice in the sky fail to hurt Shing at all, but it also couldn't even force him to take a step back. Ignorance. Seeing that the attack was ineffective, Cocolia raised her hand again without haste. The extremely cold air condensed quickly, several winter branches suddenly rose from the ground, and the impact of the deep cold suddenly spread. Facing this round of attacks, Shing just raised his head slightly and turned the amber in his hand. Cocolia only felt a darkness above her head. The right palm of the creation engine, which had regained control, clenched its fist at some point and smashed it straight towards Cocolia. The attack is close at hand. Defense seems to be too late. Cocolia only had time to raise her hand and wave upward, and the newly condensed winter fist rose into the sky and crashed into the huge iron fist that kept falling. Boom! Winter's vine collides with the engine of creation. A loud noise suddenly spread. The entire Yongdong Ridge seemed to be shaken by this powerful impact. The right arm of the creation engine was knocked back by the shock, and the condensed winter energy in Cocolia also shattered. This round of confrontation between the two was evenly matched. Cocolia, who blocked the attack from the creation engine, turned her head. A flash of fire suddenly lit up in front of his eyes. Star, whose whole body was wrapped in red flames, already raised his lance high and suddenly thrust it towards the ground. Flame spear. Burn it all. The blazing flames melted the ice and snow and scorched the earth. Fire like lava rose from the earth and instantly enveloped Cocolia. Ignorance. The extremely high temperature flames caused Cocolia to fight back immediately. The cold air surged again, the air pressure dropped rapidly, and the cold wind mixed with ice and snow suddenly raged, extinguishing the flames that had already formed an encirclement. When the flames dissipated, Cocolia took a closer look and saw that there was still a star in front of her. "Where are you looking?" A cold shout came from above his head. The star that had leapt high into the sky at some point was swooping down holding on to the burning amber. The tip of the spear was already approaching, and Cocolia could even clearly feel the heat of the flame pavement. Facing this blow, Cocolia didn't even bother to move. She just raised her arms and clenched her hands into claws. Imaginary energy spurted out. An imaginary energy ball shaped like a black hole collided head-on with the swooping flame spear. The two collided with terrifying power, and huge amounts of counter-shock force pushed the swooping star out, and Cocolia was also forced back a considerable distance. Xing stabilized his center of gravity in midair and landed safely with amber in hand. Holding the amber, he frowned, thinking about the next attack pattern. None of her attacks in this round were successful, and they were all blocked by Cocolia in various ways. I have to say, it's very tricky. This guy is much harder to beat than any empty pawn. Among the various monsters Xing had fought against, Cocolia ranked second. The first one was of course the Doomsday Beast I encountered at the Black Tower space station. The farce ends here. Looking coldly at the stars in the distance, the power of the star core was mobilized again, and extremely huge imaginary energy began to gather. The power of the star core is with me. You are just the dying struggle before the collapse of the old world. Forged with my own hands. A great new world. With the blessing of the star core power, the imaginary energy gradually gathers into the entity. Under the gaze of the star, an imaginary meteorite, covered with sharp spikes gathered and took shape in the sky. This is the salvation of dawn. Cocolia's right hand suddenly waved. The imaginary meteorite crashed down at great speed with huge kinetic energy. The attack range of this meteorite is extremely large. If you let it fall, not only you but everyone will be affected. Oops, we have to stop her. Seeing this scene, March 71, who was fighting hard, gritted his teeth, pointed the bow and arrow in his hand at Cocolia and shot an ice arrow in an attempt to interrupt Cocolia's charge. But unfortunately, before the sharp arrow could get close, it was crushed by the imaginary energy fluctuations surrounding Cocolia. Not even an inch of success has been accomplished. Almighty Dan Heng, please think of a way. Seeing that his attack had no effect, March 7 suddenly became anxious and looked at Dan Heng involuntarily. Looking at the meteorites that had gathered above his head, Dan Heng also frowned slightly. I'm thinking about whether I should not let it go so big and take it a little more seriously? At least, this imaginary meteorite must be defeated. Although I really don't want to use my hidden power, when everyone is in danger, they don't seem to care so much. Just when Dan Heng was about to throw a shot that was enough to defeat the imaginary meteorite, Xing raised the amber lance in his hand and closed his eyes. Feeling the increasingly thick aura on Xing's body, Dan Heng immediately gave up the idea of throwing this shot. The strategy to break the situation is already there. Holding the amber star, he uses his own will as a bridge to infuse the protective will of the great Asgardians of all ages. It takes the power of protecting one's destiny to a whole new level. Save. With a deep shout, a physical shield visible to the naked eye suddenly took shape, covering all friendly units. Although the shield covering his body seems as thin as paper, but somehow it gave everyone a complete sense of security. This shield feels very strong. March Chi looked at the thin layer of red light covering herself with surprise. I didn't expect Xing to have this trick. Although she can also generate a shield herself, unfortunately she can only protect a single target. Didn't you expect that Xing's accomplishments in this area were even better than his own? Concentrate on the enemy, the sword of the Shu soldiers will almost hit you. Looking at the distracted March Chi, Dan Heng, who stabbed the Shu pawn through with one shot, gave a helpless reminder. On March 71, he turned his head and saw a virtual soldier approaching without knowing when, and the blade in his hand was already close at hand. The frightened March Chi let out a scream, and then subconsciously kicked him out. With the support of the shield, with this kick, the virtual pawn in front of him was kicked backwards, knocking over several virtual pawns one after another, and rolled into a ball in the snow. Wow, when did my power become so strong? March Chi was full of surprise, hiding the results of his kick. Is that your power? The virtual soldier was obviously knocked out by the shield on your body, right? Dan Heng expressed that he was very tired and no longer wanted to talk. With the blessing of the shields on their bodies, everyone seemed to be getting more and more brave in killing, but they had completely forgotten about the imaginary meteorites falling from the sky. The imaginary meteorite fell as scheduled. The world fell silent, followed by the deafening roar. Yangdong Ridge was constantly trembling under the impact of this imaginary meteorite. A storm swept across, and the thick ice and snow covering the top of the mountain was blown away. Broken rolling stones constantly fell from the mountains into the valley. This blow was enough to clear the screen, directly changing the pattern on the top of Yangdong Ridge. Most of the empty pawns turned into powder and dissipated under the impact of this round of attacks. But the people at the center of the explosion remained motionless under the protection of this seemingly thin shield. Is this a friendly force? Looking at the almost empty pawns, March was overjoyed. Cut. Zaire snorted disdainfully. If it weren't for Yuxing's shield, friendly forces? March scratched her head in embarrassment. That's all I said. Branya was silent. Even though her sight was blocked by the thick snow and smoke, she still looked in the direction where Cocolia was before. No matter what mistakes Cocolia made, the other person is her adoptive mother, and this will never change. While she was worried about Xing, why didn't she care about Cocolia? This is impossible. Looking at the star that was intact under the attack, Cocolia expressed some disbelief. Will to protect can he block her strongest blow with the power of the star core so easily? Nothing is impossible. Xing held amber in his hand with a faint smile on his face. People's will is indeed very fragile sometimes, but you forget one fact. That is, human will, while most fragile, is also the most tenacious existence. It is an indelible and eternal thing. The most tenacious will cannot be defeated by any means. Not even the cruelest time can kill it. Never compromise, never give up, even if you are in a desperate situation, you can still face everything with a smile. The body can be destroyed and the soul can be broken, but only the most tenacious will last forever. Accept defeat, Cocolia. Xing raised his lance, and the power from Ziyu Kunzan was released without reservation. The blazing flames rolled violently, melting the ice and snow, and igniting the earth. Fire spear, charge. The rolling flames pushed the star forward, burning everything in its path. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Under Cocolia's gaze, the star holding amber turned into a stream of light and penetrated her body. Pillars of flames rose into the sky, and the blazing flames burned away the cold ice wrapping her body, cutting off her connection with the star core. The monster's body returned to a human form and fell to the ground together with the star core that was about to break away. Cocolia, who was extremely embarrassed, supported her body with one hand. Ice, which he hadn't felt since the deal with Starcore, swept back. The freezing cold air made my body shiver. Seeing Cocolia defeated by Xing, Yu Qi and Dan Heng breathed a sigh of relief. The next step is to seal the star core. Well, but they can't do this, they have to call Uncle Yang down. After all, Uncle Yang was responsible for handling the previous star cores. The two immediately raised their hands and clicked on their headsets, communicating with GZ and Uncle Yang respectively. On the other side, Branya walked towards Cocolia with a complicated expression. Zaire followed behind with some uneasiness. Everything seems to be over? Xing, this guy is quite handsome. Rimuru, who was watching the battle from a distance, breathed a sigh of relief. It was a short battle, but it was full of twists and turns. When I was penetrated by a lance before, I thought I was going to get cold. Fortunately, she is okay, but it should be over now, right? Probably. Yingmei nodded slightly. Cocolia should have no strength to fight anymore. The star core has begun to separate from her body, and it seems that the light has dimmed a little. I said. Tony raised his eyebrows. Do you want to remind Xing to pay attention to the last hit? Let me tell you this, I don't deserve to be this evil person. Rimuru shook his head without hesitation. A question mark appeared above Tony's head. He had good intentions, why did he suddenly turn into a villain? Isn't that what happens in those novels, comics, and movies? The protagonist team defeated the villain, but they were too soft and failed to hit the target, which then led to a series of tragedies and so on. Relationships. Relationships. Yingmei shook her head helplessly. This Cocolia is Bronya's adoptive mother after all. It would be fine if the opponent was swallowed by the star core, but if the star makes up for it, she does it in front of Bronya. Knife. Tsk. Ahem. Tony coughed dryly. Well, I didn't notice this before, so it seems I can't say anything. He himself had forgotten this. After all, his focus has always been on Xing. I don't know much about Xing's partners. Thinking of this, Tony also shook his head. Okay, I won't be this evil person. Let Xing make his own decision. Anyway, there is nothing to be afraid of. As soon as Tony finished speaking, Rimuru and Ying looked at him in unison. What are you looking at me for? Facing the two people's gazes, Tony was stunned. I told you that I don't want to be this evil person anymore. That's not what we care about, Rimuru complained. Your last sentence is very dangerous. It belongs to the category of death flag. It's a high-risk line along with lines like, let's go have barbecue tonight, get married after the war is over, don't walk around until I come back, etc. Once said, there will always be consequences. Things happen. That's right. Yingmei nodded quickly. I agree with this. That's it? Tony shook his head in amusement. I'm not a crow's mouth, so it shouldn't be possible, right? Even if it does, it will only happen in your own world. You can't just say something at home and then something will go wrong in Xing's world, right? If true, what does this mean? The crow's mouth of the level universe? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Stark, the genius he is definitely not a crow's mouth. Absolute. Maybe it's because the world we live in is different. Tony's death flag did not affect the world of Star Rail. The only episode was probably the demise of Cocolia. After all, Star Core is not a good thing. Being called the cancer of all worlds by many civilizations must be justified. Those who came into contact with the Star Core and even used the power of the Star Core to still be alive. At present, there is only one extremely special case of Xing. Cocolia was completely swallowed up by the Star Core without exception. Her demise also completely declared the end of this war. The only one who felt sad was Bronya. Everyone has different moods. The problem of the Star Core has been solved, and it's time to be happy. But looking at Bronya's condition, everyone was not very happy. The companions are in sorrow, but they are happy. This doesn't look right no matter how you look at it, right? I wanted to open my mouth to comfort him, but I didn't know how to do it. The atmosphere was somewhat silent for a moment. Looking at this scene from a distance, Moyu turned his head. Everyone, that's it for today. I'm leaving first. I have something waiting for me tomorrow. Okay. See you next time, Rimuru waved. Chat in the group, Yingmei also nodded. What do you want tomorrow? Tony was stunned. Didn't you agree that I would go to your house tomorrow? Are you going out? After listening to Tony's words, Moyu suddenly frowned and said with a strange expression. Well, Tony, you'd better not come to my house tomorrow, otherwise you might get beaten up and your life might even be in danger. Both Wanda and Pietro hated Tony. Isn't the reason why they voluntarily became HYDRA's experimental subjects precisely because they hold a breath of revenge in their hearts? The weapon that destroyed their family and was emblazoned with the Stark Industries logo will never be forgotten by either of them. What? Is there going to be some magician gathering at your house tomorrow? So I, as an outsider, will be in danger if I go there? Tony touched his chin, his eyes getting brighter and brighter. Isn't this an opportunity to learn more about the world? Can I take advantage of the opportunity to join the club or something? What conditions need to be met to be eligible to join? Or is there some special test? Thinking too much. Moyu turned around and stared at Tony. There is no magician gathering. There are only two poor people whose families were destroyed by your company's missiles. If you go, you will probably be skinned and boned. Although Wanda and Pietro are not bad in nature. But when facing enemies, hatred may defeat the two people's reason. With Wanda's ability now, once she loses her mind, there will only be words of hatred in her heart. The probability rewriting initiated by the subconscious mind is definitely not something Tony can handle. These things may not happen, so it's best not to go. Listening to Moyu's description, the smile on Tony's face gradually disappeared. Obviously, he understood what Moyu wanted to express. It's my fault again, Tony sighed. I know this may be a little late, but is there anything I can do to make up for it? I don't mean anything else, I just want to make me feel better. Although he was the controller of the company before, his company did not represent him. Whose hands the weapons he makes will fall into is not up to him. However, after all, the weapons were developed by him, manufactured by his company, and sold by his company. Things have happened, and Tony will not choose to excuse himself. I just feel a little uncomfortable. Obviously his original intention of developing and manufacturing these weapons was to protect more people. But it always backfires, often hurting more innocent people. Compensation or something. Moyu spread his hands and said, I don't think they will accept your kindness. Compensate? Maybe Tony meant well. But in the eyes of Wanda and Pietro, this is most likely a humiliation. It is the charity of hypocrites. Instead of being grateful, you will become angry. This is probably human nature. As for whether Tony can resolve their hatred for him, it depends on Tony himself. Moyu will not choose to intervene. After all, no matter which side he stood on, it didn't look good. Don't encourage others to do good unless they have suffered. He hates those guys who stand on the highest moral level and point fingers with an arrogant attitude, and he doesn't want to be that kind of person. When he meets that kind of person, he prefers to use his hands rather than his mouth. Is there a need for debate? Just kill him and that's it. As for whether he will be misunderstood, whether he will be punished, etc., do you think he seems to care? He has his own code of conduct. If they are friends, then entertain them with good wine and meat. If they are enemies, then kill them all without leaving any further trouble. Whether it's the Holy Mother or the devil, it all depends on your mood. So simple and clear. Okay, Tony nodded with a dark expression. Then it seems I'd better not go now, so as not to irritate them later. Why don't you come to my villa when you are free? Moyu thought for a moment and then nodded. Okay, let's do it tomorrow night. It just so happens that there is nothing to do tomorrow night. I also need your help with something. There was something he needed Tony's bright mind for. The super gene of fighting gods and Buddhas can arm all theoretical knowledge and transform it into fighting instincts. This is the biggest advantage of this super gene. As the monkey said, I don't understand science and technology, but I can do it. After getting this super gene, Moyu naturally also possessed this instinct. Therefore, as long as the theory is not wrong, Moyu can transform it into his own fighting instinct as quickly as possible. This is also his greatest asset in building a series of combat engines. Other aspects can be studied slowly, but on one aspect, Moyu is not even a beginner. That is, life technology and genetic technology. And it just so happens that Tony has unimaginable ability in this regard. Among his research results in life science and technology are technologies such as extremis, bionano, etc. Asking Tony for help was a very good choice, and more importantly, there was no one else who could help him. Maybe Hada and Ruan Mei in Star Iron World can do it, but Moyu has no friendship with them, and Star's face is probably not enough. Then I'd be very happy. Hearing that Moyu needed help from him, Tony immediately became happy. As long as I can, I will definitely help, but as a reward, you have to introduce me to this world that is familiar yet unfamiliar to me. Also, what do you like to eat and drink? I can't guarantee anything else, but the dinner will definitely be sumptuous. I'm not picky. Moyu nodded slightly. Just order whatever you want. Now even if he never eats or drinks, there will be no problem. But he didn't want to end his lust for words. See you tonight. See you tonight. As soon as the words fell, Moyu and Tony's figures disappeared at the same time. Looking at this scene, Rimuru sighed. It's great to be in the same world, and we can all hang out together soon. You just want to play. Yingmei smiled and said, okay, it's late enough. I have to run for a living tomorrow, so I'll get off first. With a foodie as big as Paimon, she hasn't overcome the financial crisis yet. I feel like no matter how much more I save, it's not enough to spend. This emergency food is somewhat substandard. Not only cannot it be used for emergencies, it may even harm the landlord's food reserves. That's what I say, but can you soften the curve of the corners of your mouth a little? Really? Looking at the empty surroundings, Rimuru spread his hands. Busy, everyone is busy, it's better to be busy. Hey, Xing, we've all withdrawn, let's chat in the group. He waved his hand in the direction of the star, and Rimuru's figure disappeared. Star looked back and blinked. Everyone has withdrawn. Then the live broadcast will be turned off. I don't know when I can introduce everyone to GZ, Uncle Yang, Dan Heng and March. I always felt like Dan Heng had been looking at her a little strangely these past 2 days. But that's right. He didn't do much to hide it at all, let alone come up with so much information. It's impossible not to be curious. It's better to find a time to talk to everyone, so that you don't have to hide it. This kind of thing should be easy for everyone to accept, right? 5 o'clock in the morning. The top floor of the Empire State Building. The 2 doors opened one after the other. They looked at each other as if they had a tacit understanding, and then nodded silently. The 2 of them looked at the central room in unison, but the door was still closed. Wanda, there doesn't seem to be a kitchen here, and I don't see a refrigerator. Pietro was the first to speak. Mr. Moyu hasn't gotten up yet, how should we prepare breakfast? Wanda was also in trouble for a moment. Pietro, why don't you run down there? Pietro's mouth twitched. There are probably more than 100 floors here. There should be an elevator, right? Wanda looked at the door uncertainly. None of this is a problem, Wanda. Pietro shook his head decisively. Even if there is no elevator, I can run. After all, that's all I'm good at, but the key is, Wanda, we have no money. A penny stumps a heroic man. They had just been rescued from Hydra's base by the Ancient One magician. They had nothing, so where did the money come from? The 2 of them felt numb for a moment. Then, how about I knock on the door? Wanda turned her head and looked at Moyu's door. Don't. Pietro said with some hesitation. It's better not to wake up Mr. Moyu. Wanda suddenly fell silent. I originally planned to make a breakfast to express my gratitude. Now it seems that breakfast cannot be made. Why didn't you think of this last night? You guys got up quite early, but since you're all awake, let's come over. Moyu's voice suddenly sounded in the living room, and the 2 of them turned their heads to look under the floor-to-ceiling windows. I saw a hand stretching out from the lounge chair under the floor-to-ceiling window and waving to them. There was a bit of embarrassment on their faces, and then they walked away. Walking up to her, Wanda said immediately, I'm sorry to disturb your rest. It's not a disturbance, I didn't sleep at all, Moyu said nonchalantly. I'm busy developing combat engines, so how can I be in the mood to sleep? And whether he sleeps or not doesn't make much difference to him. When you are no longer busy and want to sleep, just have a good sleep. Before I could find time to watch Ying Hexing's live broadcast, it was all with a certain degree of purpose. Otherwise he wouldn't have time to waste on useless things. The 2 were speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. Sit down first and then talk. Moyu raised his hand and snapped his fingers, and 2 recliners exactly like the one under him appeared next to him. I happen to have something I want to ask your opinions on and hear your truest thoughts. This is related to your next lifestyle and future direction. Hearing this, Wanda and Pietro were stunned. Is the next thing to say about their future? The expressions on their faces became serious. Slowly he sat down on the recliner. That, Pietro said a little uneasily. Mr. Moyu, may I ask, what questions do you need to ask us? They are now probably considered to be belonging to others, right? If their answers dissatisfy Mr. Mo Yuxian, what will be the result? First question. Moyu turned his head slightly. Did the Ancient One magician promise anything when he brought you out of the Hydra base? Promise? The 2 looked at each other and shook their heads. It seems that there is no promise? Didn't she say anything? This time it was Moyu's turn to be a little strange. If the Ancient One magician didn't say anything, why did these 2 people just run out of the Hydra test base with the Ancient One magician? From a common sense perspective, this doesn't make sense. I did say something. Wanda pursed her lips and said softly, it's just that we don't quite understand. They say that we are the key point and can save the world from disasters. Oh, by the way, she also said that if we continue to stay at the base otherwise, Pietro might die. Because she's amazing, sigh. So you believe it? Yes. Then I understand. Moyu nodded slightly, finally understanding how the Ancient One magician brought these 2 people out. Compared to revenge against Stark, Wanda and Pietro undoubtedly place more importance on their loved ones. Revenge is optional, but nothing can happen to each other. Because each other's existence is the only concern that the 2 of them still have in this world. I didn't expect that the Ancient One magician would use any means to deceive people. This is what should have happened in the original world line. There is a question mark as to whether it will happen in this world line now. However, it does not rule out the possibility that in this world line, Pietro will die in various researches of Hydra. After all, Moyu will never let Mind Gem fall into the hands of others. Strictly speaking, this possibility is very high, and it was all caused by him. The Ancient One magician may have had a glimpse of the consequences of this future, so... Blame me? Moyu touched his chin with a strange look on his face. Besides these, did Ancient One magician mention anything else? No more. Wanda and Pietro shook their heads in unison. That's it. Did the Ancient One magician not mention the Sorcerer Supreme candidate at all? I guess I was worried that saying it too soon scared Wanda away, right? It would be strange for ordinary people not to be frightened when they hear that they are facing an ancient evil god or a dimensional Mephisto. All right. Moyu waved his hand gently, and a thick book appeared in his hand, and then said, "What kind of life do you plan to live in the future? A dull, ordinary life, or one full of mystery, unknowns, and dangers? Although you all have the qualifications to enter the mysterious side of the world, you can still choose not to step into it. You don't have to answer this question too quickly. Give me the answer after you think about it carefully. After all, once you make a choice, you may have to face two completely different futures. Although there is no way to have both, but obviously, that requires extremely powerful power. Have the power to say, no, to everything. It must be, don't do anything if you don't want to do it. Rather than, do whatever you want to do. The reason is simple, because the latter still cannot say, no, to everything. Moyu thinks that it is far from enough to achieve it. With his current ability, he may not even be able to do the latter, let alone the earlier one. Newcomers who have just entered the mysterious side are forced to move forward by a series of events, aren't they? There is no room for independent choice. If the two of them plan to enter the mysterious side, this will probably be the case for a long time to come. And in the process, a lot may be lost. This is why Moyu asked the two to think deeply before making a choice. Two completely different futures? Wanda and Pietro looked at each other and said with almost no hesitation, "We choose the latter."